So this episode is a little bit different than our usual Done Piece episodes. We did plan to include this at the beginning of our Act 2 of Wano episode.
But the conversation was just too fun to cut short, so we decided to release it as its own separate episode.
But stay tuned for this Thursday for our regular Done Piece beat by beat episode. But for now, enjoy this amazing conversation and Theory Fest with our special guest, Parvision.
Parvision! Also, I think I was saying his name wrong the entire time, but you know, me and names, dude, I don't know what the heck is wrong with me, man. It's a problem. It's a problem. I truly and honestly feel like Luffy on the island with Ray Lee after this conversation. Dude, I feel like I got leveled up right now, dude. I feel like I got leveled up. I feel like my mind is like been cracked wide open. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Volume 1, the anime and manga podcast where we highlight and discuss news series each week. But today we are back again with more Done Piece, which means that my name is Josh Hawkins Michaels, and I am joined by
Mehgan, Okiku Pari.
Okiku Pari. Thank you.
Knew?
Who knew, Okiku? Thank you for tuning in to another episode of what we call our Done Piece series. Today is Wano Act 2. And today, Mehgan, we're not doing it alone. We have a very, very, very special guest. Everybody, make some noise for the one, the only, Parvisions!
What's up, everyone?
What is up, my guy?
I guess I'm Par Luffy Taro Vision today.
Oh,
I like it. I like it.
In character.
Yeah, I tried my best with the scar.
It looks great.
I was going with the trying to get the robe thing going on, but I think it looks better without.
I mean, it looks fresh.
Yeah,
dude.
yeah,
It
yeah.
looks
It looks
crazy.
fresh, fit.
Fresh, fit. Keep going.
Taro.
Okay. Thank you for joining us, dude. Parvision, you seem, I mean, we talked a little bit before we started recording about, some of the stuff that we're going to be getting into. And I'm so excited to talk to you. I mean, you seem so knowledgeable from what we've seen on your channel, too. We love what you do. There's no better person in our minds to be talking about this act with. Wano Act 2. First of all, do you want to tell anything that people might not know about you before we start going too deep into it? I don't want to just get right into it. I want to let them know, what you do over there on your channel.
How you hold it down.
How you run your shit.
Yeah.
How you run your ship.
Oh.
So people can go check you out too.
I love that because it's funny. I'm working on merch right now, which is a Jolly Roger for like my channel for the Visionary Pirates or whatever. But so it's just pretty funny that you said like what you got going on your ship. But yeah, I mean, essentially, I'm a fairly newer YouTuber on. It's weird to even call myself a YouTuber, but my fans would be upset if I didn't call myself that. But I started making One Piece content around November last year, 2021, and people just have been enjoying the theories and ideas. For the most part, I think I'm more of like a person who looks at details that Oda has left behind, like these breadcrumbs, and tries to connect the dots to this like grander story. And the thing is, Oda is a master when it comes to like making his world and making everything meaningful. And there's so many times now that we've seen in the story where, this small detail, this one panel is super, super important. And Oda does a great job of either highlighting those things or keeping them under wraps. And then when you realize it, when you're in the moment of like the grand reveal, you're like, wow, that was so important. And so, my channel primarily focuses on making theories that are like connections and that kind of thing. And I just want to point out something too, like, with the theories, I think my brand is more so just to have fun, just to like think, just to be open-minded. That's kind of what I love doing. Regardless of One Piece, just in life, just having an open mind and being more positive, I guess, in that regard. And so one thing that I want to say is I just listened to your Wano Act 1 recording that you posted earlier today.
Yes.
And I just want to say, Mehgan, you don't need to say you're stupid for the theory. Like that's what theories are for. I mean, and the thing about it is like, obviously there was like comments, like, I read some of the comments and I have my own theory that connects to, you know, destiny and karma and that kind of stuff. And so, a lot of people would think it's dumb, but like it's not. This is One Piece. Oda made this world for us to have fun.
Yes.
And to like, you know, imagine various things, whether you're wrong or right. It's more about having the fun with the ideas. And again, your idea, it's not. There's a video. I don't think. I wish I made some of my videos more like anime only friendly, but obviously being a current manga reader, I use like current details. But there's a recent one. There's like a video with the straw hat. I could talk about it later in the call too. That ties into what you're talking about with why scars or things like that could be relevant in destiny and that kind of stuff. So I really liked hearing that. So, you know, going forward, continue having more of those, because it's, I mean, without spoiling, Act 3 is where I started, and I'm a One Piece theorist. So like you're going to have, I loved hearing it.
And that's kind of how you know, came onto our radar. People in our community know you for having like, not just like crazy theories, but pretty sound theories that are good.
Yeah, and theories, I mean, like, I like how you said it too. It's like, you know, it's like egg theory. It doesn't have to be real. But with Oda and One Piece, it's like anything is possible. That's why it's so fun to theorize. Like, he could pull anything. And even if you thought something was going to happen, it's like, well, no, this is actually what's happening. You're like, huh? I was like blindsided at every turn. So it's just so fun to think about like what could be or what is, because he just allows you to theorize and imagine what this world could bring you.
Yeah, and like that's another thing. Like a lot of people on a lot of my viewers, they love theorizing, having these ideas. And I think when I came into the community, like a lot more people were more like negative and shooting down ideas. And like the way I think about it is like, if you're using components of the story and you're not like making things up, then it's like you're teaching me something that maybe I didn't know, or teaching somebody else. Right. And there's countless times in my videos where someone's like, I didn't even remember that. And like, there's so many details like that. And like my last few videos that were more popular were like about Noland. We could talk about that one. That one's actually, no, I can't talk about that one this time. I could talk about parts of it. I could talk about it. I could talk about it, but it'll be more fun to talk about it because you'll realize later on why I talked about it. And then
I love it.
There's another one. This one's a fun one because it's just like, remember Vanderdecken?
Yeah.
So I have this thing. This is like my intro to the Reverie, just to like stake my claim in it. But one of the things that we can talk about will come. Another one of those things you'll realize later on, but one of my more popular ones is Mihawk is a sword. Like, he's actually a sword, and we went through the chapters that were relevant for it in I think like 937 and like 954 or something like that. So that's an example of a theory that sounds crazy to you.
Well,
but
there's something, that happened in this act that makes that feel not crazy at all.
Yeah. Exactly.
And then this is the funniest part, where it's like, there's people who just want to power scale a Mihawk, and then there's people who like Mihawk's their favorite characters. I took all of those people and then just convinced them that he's a sword, and then they're just like, I don't know what to do with him now. How do we even cosplay Mihawk? Like, yeah. And then so on the Vanderdecken one, the other one is that the original, this Vanderdecken, but the original Vanderdecken, he's a mushroom. He's 100% canonically a mushroom. There's no doubt in my mind. Do you guys know why I'm saying that?
No doubt in your
mushroom?
mind, dude.
Okay, I can go behind the sword, but mushroom?
Okay, well, wait. He's asking if we have any idea why. Do you have any idea why? Any idea why he's saying that?
Mushroom.
I don't.
What's
I give up.
Mushroom?
I give up.
They have to do with shit.
I mean, he could just tell us.
Yeah, tell us. Yeah, you're here. We don't have to be stupid right now.
Stop. You don't need to call yourself stupid. It's fine.
I know, she's so self-deprecating.
Yeah. You don't gotta beat yourself up for this. But especially not this one. This one's hilarious. So Vanderdecken is a fishman, right? and he's specifically a Japanese bull shark fisherman, which is like known as a cat shark in Japan. So that's why Oda gave him like these whiskers. And the thing about fishmen is it's the upper body is fish, lower body is human, right?
Right.
But if you remember, Vanderdecken had 4 legs. That's not human. And the other part is we have yet to meet any race. There's no race in One Piece with 4 legs. So then, and then we know with fishmen specifically, there are hybrid races, right? Like we've met Dellinger I think that's his name, Dellinger in Dressrosa. He was half human, half fighting fishman.
Yes.
And then Chimney from Water 7 and Enies Lobby, she's the grandchild and she's just a human. So there are iterations of how diluted the fisherman blood can be. And
there was this whole like emphasis on, and I talked about it before, there was this whole emphasis on not just because someone doesn't look like they're of the same like fish type that their parents are. Like there was emphasis put on like any type of fishman can give birth to like
any type of
fishman. And I just feel like that, like if
it was purposeful for sure.
Yeah.
Oda said it like, if Oda says it more than once, it's coming back.
If that was given so much time and emphasis, like it has to be significant and important in some way.
Yeah. And so just with the other part of it was that the original Vanderdecken, when you reread his story, it makes more sense that he's not Fishman because he was lured down to the seafloor by the legend of Poseidon. Oh, it's so great that I can actually like, because I was just on another podcast where like they're going through like volume by volume and they're just in Fishman. So I had to redact like so many things and I had to watch everything. But like, and I was on a pre-time skip volume 52, and I was like, I couldn't say Haki, and I was like, oh my God, like I couldn't.
I know it's hard.
Yeah. But it's hard. I can say Poseidon with you guys and stuff like that. So much fun. But so right now, what we're kind of understanding is like, you learn about the ancient weapon from like Robin learned about Poseidon from Skypiea, right?
Right.
And but that original Vanderdecken also somehow, outside of being only the royal family knew about it, right? About the Otahime. She was the one who knew about it, but Vanderdecken's not like a royal family. So then it kind of sounds like that original Vanderdecken read the Poneglyph, because where else would you learn about Poseidon? Where else would you learn like about these details? Like it's not like it's just published or anything like that.
Yeah.
So that also just tells you that that means that original Vanderdecken either had like voice of all things or like could read the Poneglyphs or something like that, right? Yeah. Now, and then the second part being that since he's not from Fishman Island, you can kind of imply he's another race, period. And then the other part of it was that leg race was actually shown to us in Whole Cake Island. If you guys remember in Mont Dior's book that Big Mom held all the races in, there was a race called Kinokobito. And it's the only 4-legged race of mushroom hybrid people that we've seen in the entire show.
You did it! You fucking figured it out, you son of a bitch. That's it. That has to be it.
Yeah.
And it's like at this point in the story, like Whole Cake Island was supposed to like be all the races, and I think there she said like I don't have like
in this
she's
act,
missing some.
She said she's missing 3 in this act. She says that.
Right. And so then it's like, okay, so she has that one, and we've seen a majority of them. I would imagine the last 3 probably aren't related to this like 4-legged thing that Vanderdecken is, but we saw 4-legged Kinokobito mushroom hybrid people, and it's just hilarious that Oda put like a detail like that. Why would he even make Vanderdecken have 4 legs? Like, it just is so random.
Well, and you're talking about detail too. There was something that I saw about there being like, people thought that and maybe it's just Oda playing with this, but in the very first chapter, there was a scene with Shanks and the mountain pirates or bandits or whatever they are, or were so long ago.
Higuma.
That they when they break down the door to get in, and when they leave, the door is fixed. So people thought, oh, this is a continuity error. Oda put in an SBS, like, oh, it's not a continuity. And he's being playful, which is why we love Oda.
And sometimes he does. He's like, I didn't think anyone would notice that. Like, yeah, sure.
Right.
Yeah, whatever you think it is.
But he's like, it's not a continuity error. It's this like super handy like carpenter craftsman who just like popped in and fixed it, really quickly. And the little drawing that he included in the SBS is the same person that Frankie is working for in Wano.
Oh,
so,
that's awesome that you picked up on that, because people were going nuts before about because that guy is in. Again, it's in the SBS, I imagine, but there's also, I think, in the anime or in the manga, that guy is like, it's like. Pokemon, like Nurse Jenny, or
Joy.
Nurse Joy. Yeah, in every single city, it's the same nurse.
Yeah.
That's what it kind of felt like with this guy, where we just saw him in like 2 other places. And I was like, wait a second, is this Carpenter just like, is this a franchise? Like, are we cloning people now? Like, what's going on?
I mean,
maybe
yeah,
it's Who knows, dude? Damn. There was so many things, I think, that especially as we're getting into Wano, like, what we learned in this Act 2, which was absolutely insane, was the actual explanation for and reason why Smile is called Smile.
Yeah. You thought we were like, oh, it was already kind of said, but it's like, oh no, it's actually the repercussions. I'm like, what?
Right. And there's just so many things, even in Act 1, that are just giving so much context to things from previous arcs. Like you said, small little things that a lot of people never would assume in any other story would come back to matter and have such significance like they do.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely insane. Like learning about Smile and learning what happened to this, like, I'm probably saying the word wrong. People come at me all the time. Daimyo.
Yeah.
Damn it, dude. I thought I was confident.
Yeah.
Don't worry. I'm not the best at pronunciations. As long as you're making an effort, that's respectable.
Exactly.
I do admit when I'm wrong, and I do try to correct it. Just learning about all the history. And we were talking about this previously on another podcast that we were recently on, just how there's just so much history in this world. And Wano is, I feel like, not necessarily for the first time, but you feel it, I think, so much more. It is expanding on that history. It is answering a lot of questions. And I really feel that as we go further and further and deeper into Wano, we're tying more things together. The world and the history is connecting like it never has before.
Yeah. I mean, sea prism stones. I mean, the Poneglyphs. We're getting a lot of information like, oh, Wano is like a key factor in all of these things.
Yeah, we're learning more about the blades and the cursed blades. And now Zoro in this act gets a new blade.
That actually affects him like drastically,
which was the only blade to ever slice Kaido that was wielded by Odin.
Yeah,
and the way that their word for Haki, the way it like comes out of this sword, and they speak of like forged blades.
Yeah.
It's a white blade now, but can be forged and its rank be rise. Like this is all like crazy stuff. And we talked about it even in Act 1, the callback all the way to Logtown when he was even introduced to this blade in the very first place at the very first time. Like, and now it's being like called back to hundreds and hundreds of chapters later. It's absolutely insane. It's insane. Parvision, this act as a whole, you were week to week, right?
No, actually I was anime only here. And it was right after this when I got into the manga, because when chapter 1000 came out was when I jumped into the manga. So the anime was still like, I think Act 2 might have just concluded. And so I wasn't a part of the week to week community there.
Right.
But I've heard some things. In reflection about it, and I like, Mehgan knows I chose this one specifically because in reflection, to give you a little bit of the perspective of like, the manga readers, is that this was held as the worst part of Wano.
That's what I was gonna
exactly. I was reading up on that, and I obviously Act 1, the Act 2, it is kind of reminiscent for me, at least, parts of like Dressrosa, where a lot of things are happening at once. But you have to realize, this is the build up to what we're going to be seeing, which is like a war. So a lot of things are happening fast because it has to. I mean, they only have 8 days at this point.
Yeah.
But yeah, what are your thoughts on it being the worst
Or people
compared to
calling it that.
compared to
It's funny because it, like, to me, I'm just a One Piece fan. Like, at the end of the day, there's a lot of negative things that are in every single story, I think. And I think what happened was a lot of people were theory crafting a lot and like too heavily and being putting their eggs into certain theory baskets.
I feel that.
Expectations.
And not saying that the expectations of some of them weren't fulfilled. There were a lot of incredible ideas, and Oda always till this day is just mind-blowing, right?
Yeah.
But it does, I can understand why a lot of people, there's some validity. I think one of the major knocks, and this was talked about the YouTube Reverie, and you guys just saw it, was Big Mom's circumstances on Wano. The buzzword is Big Mom's amnesia. And and so like, to me, I kind of, I understood why it happened, especially from the whole picture. And I also kind of like, it didn't bother me the way it bothered a lot of the other manga readers. I think it was seen as like plot convenience, that kind of thing.
Right.
But I kind of liked it, and I'm actually now, because I reread it for this podcast, I have like a few ideas of like a theory that was coming on, because Big Mom is at the center of this idea that I have, and now I saw some really important lines and details when I was rereading it, and so to the note that you were pointing at was that this act, from all angles, is a build-up like act, a build up section of the story. And like, it's not going to have the action. It's not going to have these things. It's supposed to set you up for so much more. And I can tell you from a current manga reader, but then also you don't even need current manga knowledge to see how many of these lines I went through, like, and I had to stop because I just didn't have time. But there's like every chapter, there's like something. I could make a whole video on every single chapter and how it relates to something that we touched on in the past. Like, for example, I think, chapter 927 at the very beginning. And you guys touched on this in the first act, where it's like what we're seeing in Wano under the rule of Kaido and Orochi is kind of like a microcosm of the Celestial Dragons in a lot of ways, right? Like we saw from the Kyoshiro family, like they get like these taxes, and what the taxes provide you is protection. That's literally heavenly tribute. And you see that, like, how impactful that is on the people. And then you also see the way they oppress, right? Like that you see
and we see the callers in this part too.
Yeah.
In this act.
Yeah. And like they criminalize martial arts. You can't use swordsmanship. You can't do dojo stuff, so that you can't band together and fight against them. That's one way they cripple you. And then you see that outside of the world. Well, then that makes sense why the world government doesn't like really strong people and like pirates, and you put bounties on them, because if you get rid of what happens, we saw with Sanji, it's like he doesn't care about the protection because he's just really strong. So then you take the macro picture of that. It's like, why would a country need any protection from the world government? Like, if you had like a Garp or something, if Garp like cared about something, I wouldn't need the world government. I prefer Garp or Luffy or someone else, right? And so it's like points like that where we always understood that Wano was going to be this focal point of One Piece, of the story. And like, I don't know if you guys like heard about this, but you guys watched and read Naruto, right?
I did. Mehgan did.
Yeah, I haven't.
Okay, I mean, it's not like, this isn't like spoiler, but like Oda and Kishimoto are friends, right? Like they have cover stories.
That was that cool cover story. Yeah,
that was so cute.
And so one of the things, and I always forget to like fact check this, but every time I mention it and then I look it up, I'm like, oh yeah, this is true. But every time I bring it up, I'm like, am I just making this up? But
Do I want this to be true?
Yeah.
Yeah, but like Oda, this part is true. Oda stretched out the story. Like after Arabasta, like things were kind of like off the riff and the story got stretched. Like the warlord stuff, all that stuff was added in. And one of the major things about it was Wano being like Japan centric and like samurai and ninjas and that kind of thing. He didn't want that to coincide with Naruto because Naruto's entire thing is that
ninja.
So what he essentially said was like, you go first and I'll just like go later, essentially. Is
later. Like what later?
Yeah.
Years later.
GS move. Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you think about it, even that is like really important because I don't know if you guys knew this, but up until the end of Arabasta, and I'm pronouncing it like most people say Alabasta, but then recently there was like a correction that it's Arabasta to like Arabasta. I haven't gotten the pronunciation down because I've 20 years of saying Alabasta is just, it's hard for me to switch. But
I get that, dude. I get that.
But Oda had, up until the end of Arabasta, he had the lunar cycle in the manga, like so that you could track the days that were going by in the story. And that's just like, and he stopped after that. And that's like a nod to the fact that like, yeah, he was stretching out the story. He's not going to continue doing a lunar cycle for the entire 1,000 chapters, but up until like chapter 219, I think is like where he stopped. That's, like where else have you seen something like that? I've never heard of anything so
the
absurd.
attention to detail.
Yeah.
The care.
So,
and like now we come to Wano, and Wano is like he's like the Kozuki name, like Kozuki, and then there's the idea that I think a lot of people going into Wano, especially with Zoro and Ryuma on Thriller Bark, right? The idea that like Zoro's related to this, and then Zoro's village being, Shimotsuki village. The kanji behind Kozuki and Shimotsuki is moon. So at the end of it is moon. And so I actually have a video recently about how much Wano connects the entire world, and people were fighting me on this, but then it's like there's some. I can't wait for you guys to catch up.
I know.
But one thing. This isn't spoiler because it's just like So Marineford, right?
Yeah, right.
Do you remember what shape that island is?
Oh shit! It's like
it's
a moon. Yeah, it's a crescent moon.
Crescent moon, and it's just and here's another one. I mean, this is a theory that. Not a theory. Someone just found this and then they were like, make a theory on this. And I was like, okay, like literally like gunpoint held. I was just like, they sent it to me on like Saturday and I was like, I'll see what I can do with it. And then that day I made a whole video, like a 20-minute video on it or something. But there's a weird thing in Impel Down. They're on if you guys remember, like each level is like a different hell. So on Starvation Hell level 3, I forget what chapter, it's not coming to my head. It's like 450 or 5 something. I don't remember. But there's a poneglyph. There's literally just a poneglyph in Impel Down.
What?
Yeah.
What? Where?
It's so there's a panel with Buggy, Mr. 3, and Luffy, and they're just in the Starvation Hell, and just like there's a huge thing.
I think I remember that, and I thought it was something like, oh, maybe like they're writing like how long they've been in Impel Down. I thought it was like check marks to.
Right,
like prisoners, or like how many
days
I've had without food or water. Like I really was like, oh, that's what it is, and I didn't even think about that.
So and like that's just we know from Zoe that the Kozuki made the poneglyphs, right?
Yes.
And it's just like what? Like, and then on top of that, in the digital coloration, they even like, so you could look at the black and white and be like, oh, it's just writing. It's just this random weird inset poneglyph that's very similar to like Skypiea when there was like the inset poneglyph that Robin saw. It's like the same kind of like vibe. And then also the one in Under the Bell, it's like inset the same kind of way. And the writing would be similar to how you would view a poneglyph from very far away. But then in the digital coloring, they even gave it the poneglyph color. And I was like, wait, this is just straight up a poneglyph. And it wasn't just one panel. After I posted it, my viewers sent me like, oh, this is a different angle of that same poneglyph, a different angle. I'm like, all right, so this isn't just like a 1-panel thing. This is like a 4-panel thing. That's
so crazy.
And so now with that idea that Wano connects to everything, there are connections that just don't make sense. Like, why is there a poneglyph there? Why is Marineford shaped like this moon? And then like the ends of the like Kozuki is light moon, Shimotsuki is frost moon. It's like, why are these moon names here? Like it's so interesting.
And another crazy thing that I feel like definitely ties into is laughter. Smiles, you know, I mean, we watched Stampede and there were some people who said,
good.
You shouldn't have watched Stampede before it got to the reveal of the manga. But Oda is a genius. Oda knows what he's doing. He gave up that information willingly to celebrate the 20th anniversary of One Piece. I trust Oda's decision. But we saw that reveal that, you know, it's not Raftel, that it's Laugh Tail. And this idea of laughter and now with smile, fruits, and all of these themes that are holding a lot more significance than I think I would have initially thought them to hold.
Yeah.
It's just really, really, really crazy. I also, since we're on this theory train and I love it, we also see in the very beginning, in the first couple chapters of Act 2, we see Moria. Moria is back and Moria is looking for Absalom. And Moria thinks that Absalom is alive, but it's another... I believe, I don't know if it's a devil fruit user or a smile fruit user, but as, tricked him into thinking that it's Absalom, but it's not. But we do see that it's not because Shiryu of the Rain shows up, and Shiryu has Absalom's devil fruit. But I was under the impression, unless something happened to Absalom, that Absalom was the one going around getting the scoop on everybody. I thought Absalom was the person who was writing all of these news articles about everybody, which would then lead me to believe like either A, something happened to Absalom, or B, like Blackbeard is able to, and how he is able to just like take people's devil fruits from them without killing them. But maybe it is as simple as he just killed Absalom.
Yeah.
But
wait, that's hilarious. You said that that's a theory you have about Absalom? That he was going around getting the scoops?
Well, that's in an SBS. That's
okay, that's in that. Okay, I was about to say, because like Oda confirmed, I don't remember where it was, but
it was,
he said
it was in, I forgot what SBS it was in, but it was like a couple
because the name,
back.
I think, I forget his like code name. They're like, oh, it was like a code name for the like
Absa.
Absa. And it was like, yeah, that's him. I was like, oh.
Right.
So there's not remembering when it's from, I think it's the Kid Pirates. They're wondering who leaked these details. And then it says in like the byline, Absa. And they're like, who is Absa? And so then in the SBS, Oda, I think there's 2 of them. So one of them, he says that he's doing the scoops, like he's taking pictures of everyone using his fruit. And then the other one was saying that Absalom was at Marineford the entire time. It's just invisible, and that's how Moria escaped originally.
Oh, wow. That would make a lot of sense, too.
Yeah, so Doflamingo was just like, I didn't know he had the power to escape like that. And though he technically does have that power, it wouldn't have worked there because he couldn't do the shadow switch thing there. But
anything Absalom touches turns invisible.
Yeah, so that's the explanation, that it wasn't Moria, it was actually Absalom and Dr. Hogg back there.
So what is your, I guess, theory on then without giving away, I guess, anything if it is addressed later on, but with, I guess, what's happening to him, what's happened to Absalom, and how is Shiryu like able to have this devil fruit ability? Are they toying with Moria? Is it really his devil fruit? And how is Blackbeard able to keep going around? And is he just killing people? Because we don't get to see it happen. We just get to hear about it, which is another beautiful device by Oda, because every time in between these acts, like we saw it with Cat Viper and Marco, in the intro to all of these acts, we're getting to see very big and very important things that are happening outside of Wano, which adds to that feeling of Wano having these closed borders, because the Straw Hats have no idea that all this crazy shit is happening outside. So I guess, like, if it's been addressed, I guess you can't talk about it too much. But if it hasn't and you have any theories on it, like, and even I guess still, like, what do you think? Blackbeard, sure, might just be killing them, but even what we saw him do to Whitebeard, like, how is he doing this? Like, how is he doing? I mean, there's theories of him, you know, being a conjoined twin and all this other crazy stuff where he's two people in one person. But yeah, I mean, I guess just your kind of thoughts on that.
If it hasn't been
so
addressed.
It's funny you bring this up. It's like you know my theories or something like this. Or did someone ask you to ask me about this?
No.
Because I can frame this in a way. So one of the major theories that you know, I don't want to say, like, you know, gained popularity is the shadows theory. So I have this shadows theory that kind of explains devil fruits in a way. You know, you can't watch it yet. You have to catch up, obviously, because current manga reader, I use details as recent as possible to bolster it. But a lot of the details were from pre-Wano, and that's the major thing about, like, my theories is, like, Oda set up a lot of things that didn't come to fruition, and Thriller Bark is one of those huge ones. And let me just run through the theory in my head to see if I can, like, talk about. Okay. Okay,
I appreciate that.
I can tease this this part of it. It's a long video. It's a 55-minute video. So I had to do this at the Reverie, and it was funny because Rogers Base heard it and he's like, "Yo, just plug your channel, whatever. This is amazing." And I'm just like, "Oh wow, really cool. That's awesome." And because, like, someone just asked me about it. I was like, "Oh, I guess we're just dropping the shadows theory here. I guess that's what we're doing." But so to, you know, not to eat up too much time of this.
I'm so curious about this, though. Go ahead.
Okay, so Blackbeard's fruit and Moria's fruit are really, really interesting, right? Because Blackbeard's fruit controls darkness, right? It's the Yami no Mi. And Moria's fruit is like the shadows fruit, right? And so there's an obvious synergy between those two. It makes sense why Blackbeard might even just want that fruit for himself. And there's so many different ideas around why it's important. And so the Shadows series explains a probable reason to it. And so here's one thing. How many souls are there? Like, if I pulled a random citizen from Logtown or whatever, how many souls do they have? Just an average person.
One.
Okay. And Thriller Bark taught us that is wrong. Everybody has two souls in One Piece. There's one
shadow, right?
Yeah, your shadow is a subservient soul to your master body soul. Each one has their own soul.
My mind is being blown. Go ahead, keep going.
And it's really, really interesting, because when we talk about things with souls, things being alive, we have swords that can eat devil fruits. We have guns that can eat devil fruits. We have so many things that can eat devil fruits. So here's the cliff notes to it, but it's like, wait, why can't a shadow eat a devil fruit?
Yep.
That would be pretty interesting. So then we look back at Blackbeard's situation, right? He has a Yami no Mi. He can manipulate darkness, right? And and he was known to have a very weird body by Marco and Marineford, right? And we don't know of any other kind of race, but we do know from Moria that if you're able to manipulate your shadow, right? Ors was not a rubber person. He was a regular corpse.
Right.
Yes.
But through manipulation, Shadow Revolution, Moria manipulated the shadow, which then made Orz's body really weird. Now, I'm not saying that's Blackbeard's situation, but Blackbeard, if he knew how to control shadows or something, and then plus the darkness fruit, who knows what he can do with shadows? And then you look at the situation with the Whitebeard, it's like one way or the other. Okay, actually backing up. When we see Whitebeard fight Ace in chapter 440, 441, so he's a logia, right? A logia that is not intangible. And that's a very interesting thing. I can't talk too deeply about power stuff. But what I will say is that whenever we see his power, it always comes from behind him or under him. And that always weirded me out. I was like, wait, if he could just like, even if he's not intangible, the shadow could just like come around like the thing. It doesn't need to shoot out from behind him like some kind of weird like thing. And, and so then I'm like, wait a second, what if his shadow ate the Yami Yami no Mi? If anything, that would be way more powerful. And then he himself might have ate the Gura Gura no Mi that Whitebeard had. And that might explain how he has two devil fruits. His shadow has a soul and might be able to eat a devil fruit. And then he has a soul and he ate the regular one. And so that's a alternative theory, because a lot of people have like the 3, devil fruit idea. And this theory isn't opposed to that either. This theory, because we saw Luffy have hundreds of shadows in him. We saw Moria with thousands of shadows in him.
Yeah.
We don't know the limitations on shadows. And so the next part of why the shadow part is important is because we see that Blackbeard is able to negate devil fruit powers, right? When he grabbed Ace and he grabbed Luffy. And I analyzed the Luffy scene because the Luffy scene was really weird to me because even if you put sea stone cuffs on Luffy, and like we saw this in Arlong Park, Luffy was underwater, but he was still rubbery, right? Right. Very important thing, because his body's permanently changed to rubber. It's not that like the sea takes away his power, but Blackbeard actually took away his power, because when he grabbed Luffy, he threw him into the ground, and the ground doesn't have Haki, but the ground still made Luffy cough. Like Blackbeard threw him and he coughed up blood. And so it's not like he punched him. It's not like he did anything. And so that's actually his power being removed. The similar situation with Ace. And so a lot of people took that power removal thing and they, and I'm not, denouncing or debunking this, but a lot of people said that, one of his moves is like Kurozumi or something like that. And that translates to dark waters. And so a lot of people have various theories around that and think that it's like octopus related or water related or something interesting. And my thing was, whenever he grabbed Ace or Luffy, they didn't get weakened like they were touched by sea stone. Like when they in the presence of sea stone, they get like really tired or weak or whatever. Yeah. But Blackbeard just straight up negated their powers, just straight up, just like they weren't weakened. They were just like, wait, what? I can't turn into fire. Yeah. And so what I'm saying there is there's actually an explanation. So Blackbeard said he grabbed the true body of the devil fruit user, right? We were given that phrasing one other time, and that was in Punk Hazard when we were debuted Armament Haki against a Logia like Caesar. Robin explains that Armament Haki allows you to grab the true body of a user, right? And what's interesting to me there is Armament Haki also doesn't make you weak, right? Like Armament Haki, if I touched a Logia user with Armament Haki, they're not weakened all of a sudden. Just like how Blackbeard, when he, takes the thing. So it made me think that those two are more similar. The explanation we were given, the dialogue, the way the powers are manifested. And what's really important about that is what we learned on Thriller Bark again. Every person has to have a soul. What happens if you don't have a soul? Or not a soul, a shadow. What happens if you don't have a shadow?
Mehgan, Thriller Bark's your favorite arc.
What?
What happens if you don't have a shadow is that I forgot. I'm not going to even front, dude. I forgot.
So in the sunlight, you essentially get erased.
Right. Yes. Stupid Josh. Damn it.
Yes.
Duh.
So that's why Brooke was stressed.
Right. But you guys are plowing through One Piece. These are for me decades ago, So obviously a refresher on this is very helpful. But then also you guys are doing other things. So don't stop self-deprecating yourselves. Stop doing that. But
That's all we do on this channel.
I can't wait to go back
That's
and
all we do
reread
on this
and go through every like detail and you know,
Yeah.
rediscover all these things too.
Yeah.
But go
Yeah.
ahead. I'm my brain is mush. Go ahead.
So now we know that every person, no matter what, if you don't have a shadow, you get erased. And so in the video, I equated that to, if you guys just went to the Reverie part where they were saying, oh, great Emu, which light would you like to be cleansed or not cleansed, erased? Which light?
Yeah.
And so to me, my brain immediately went to Thriller Bark because I was like, wait, that was literally like we saw Robin, Sanji, and Zoro at the end of it, like literally getting erased by the light of the sun because their shadows weren't there, right? And that was where the time crunch was, where Luffy had to beat Moria to return the shadows. And so now we know that every single person without fail has to have a shadow. That's important because that applies to logias too, right? That applies that even if you're an intangible state, you have a shadow. Even if you're Kizaru, the light human, you have to have a shadow. And now that's important because we see what happens where like Moria is able to interact with your shadow revolution. If you affect the shadow, you also affect the main body. Now we're talking about grabbing the true body of a logia through armament Haki and Blackbeard's fruit. And so that's where I kind of got this idea that it might be that armament Haki allows you to essentially like strengthen your soul and your spirit's, your shadow soul, and grab on to the shadow of another person. And
God,
so
That's why their arms turn black.
Oh my god.
So-
It's a shadow.
the coloration thing aside, like a lot of people responded back, there's a different kind of like, I've never found the source, but Haki apparently is supposed to be invisible to us. And after the time skip, the black part is supposed to, I haven't found the source that's supposed to clarify that. But that being said, that could very well be why Oda depicts it that way, for that reason, right?
Well, because also we're learning, even in this act too, we're learning all of these different, I guess, stages of Haki. Obviously, Katakuri was the first person that Luffy came across that taught him this like second level to observation Haki. And now with his fight in Udon in the prison, he is training to achieve this like outward armament Haki, this like second level to armament Haki. So there then theoretically could be like levels above that or beyond that, right?
Cannot confirm or deny, but what I can say is that you guys hit a really great part in Act 2 where we hit another one of my like favorite characters. Rayleigh's, my first, being the mentor to Luffy's Haki, but now we got Hyogoro who's teaching, like you're saying, another level to Haki that Luffy was aware of, but not really understanding of. And so if this, the quote unquote random guy on Wano is teaching us such a high level ability, I would imagine, there's probably going to be more, right? There's more. Yes. Rayleigh is only the first of, not the first, I mean, we had Crocus, but there's, Roger's Pirates and who knows what else, like people, Elbaf might be next, like the things that Oda has set up for Luffy's growth is just, the numbers, the possibilities are endless. And that's why the Shadows theory is so cool, because I told you guys like maybe like a core tidbit, but like once you get there and watch the video, you'll understand like why it's so mind blowing to a lot of people. Oh my God. But I think, and so to go back to the Blackbeard thing, because that's where you asked, right? Essentially by having the darkness fruit, right, he can interact with shadows. So I would imagine if he's able to like chain up your shadow, right, using his darkness, you can't move your shadow, which means that you probably can't access these supernatural abilities that may or may not come from that light part, the shadow part. Yeah, hopefully that made sense, because like again, this is 55 minutes and I pulled some things out from there. So.
No, I do understand the gist of it, and I do think I'm gonna understand it even more maybe as we go forward, and then once I'm able to get the full context of that video, because I'm just fascinated at all of these things that happen again, like, and that's I think not to go back to it, not to have too much of a not very graceful segue, I guess, but there to go back to the pacing, I guess, of Act 2, or people's like, I guess, like problem with Act 2, because a lot of stuff seems purposely happening off page. You know, a lot of things seem to happen that we don't get to see happen. And I think that, and the reason, like, just to fill people in on my train of thought, I guess, is just because, like, with the whole Absolem thing, that's where I was thinking we didn't get to see that. We didn't get to see how his ability was taken. Was it really taken? Is there something else? Is there foul play? Is there something else going on? Is there more to it? I guess we didn't get to see that. And I guess that's kind of tying into Act 2 as well, just there being so many things that I feel like don't get shown. And upon like looking into some other people's issues with the pacing of the act and everything, I do feel like I understand where that comes from. I don't necessarily maybe share the same feelings toward the arc. I think that this arc is very significant, and actually had a wonderful time like reading it, but even more so going back and creating my notes, like realizing like how important a lot of this stuff actually is. But just the kid, and like you said, Paravision, like people, I think, amping things up and their expectations in their mind, these theories and all these, these like crazy things that they expect to happen when they don't happen, like with Kid and Luffy, kind of their not alliance, but their them being together and them kind of like having this like very funny and fun dynamic, but then Kid just kind of like leaving off panel, you're just told like, oh yeah, he escaped. And you're like, okay, well, I didn't get to, he's gone. I didn't get to see that. I don't know what happened. Then he kind of comes back, and then
it's even like Sanji's big fight, like that was off.
Sanji's big fight, when we first got to see his raid suit for the first time, like it's kind of off page, or that they kind of like cut away from it, or
they cut away, and people are. I mean, just because something is done off panel, off page, off screen, like doesn't mean that it's doesn't have the potential to come back. We have potential to go back to moments. So
with Act 2, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but most of Act 2 is just 6 days. It's like we start at like 9 days, I think, at like chapter 933, and then at the end of it, it's like 3 days left until the raid. And so this entire act is such a short amount of time, and Oda had to devote so much like detail to each different section that a lot of things got moved off, and that's where it gets into like community response, right? Because I think people at this point, or after this point, they were more like, One Piece is dragging, it's too long, blah blah blah, like went to the end. And it's like when I read this, I'm like, we need spin-offs. We need extra. Yeah. We need a bunch of, separate series. I don't care if we get double cover stories. Like I don't even back cover, front cover of the story. Like I don't know what it is, but like we definitely need more, because it's like we're coming to a point where, and you guys told me that you guys were privy to some of the announcements that Oda has been releasing recently. And so, to me, I look at Act 2 and I just see this as Oda's being, he's acknowledging that One Piece is very long, but he's trying not to rush as much as he can. And it's ironic because people are looking at Act 2 and are just like, there's so many different things that, let's talk about this, let's talk about that. And it's like, what about this? What about that? And it's like, well, what do you want? Do you want him to rush, or do you want him to slow down? And Act 2 was when I see it, I'm just like, Oda was a madman in this act, and most people it just doesn't get acknowledged as much as it should. And for the point where it's like, I told you guys before, I was naturally already rereading Wano. And when Mehgan messaged me to come on a thing, I hit Act 2 and I was like, wow, perfect. Like now I have someone else to talk to about this besides the thing. It's like, there's so many things. I think you guys mentioned this. You guys are talking about Weevil in the last thing. That there's a mini theory I could put in there that's just hilarious. I think my viewers would hurt me if I didn't bring this up, but I
love it. I want to hear it.
So I don't know if you guys after I posted this thing, people thought I was crazy, but then apparently there's an SPS for it, and I was like, wait, that's so funny. So Do you guys think that Weevil is Whitebeard's biological son?
Well, Megan, you go first.
Well, Whitebeard. I'm sure he got around the block. He's a handsome man. He's got it. He's got it. So it would not surprise me if it was, because I know it's kind of being played as a joke. But Oda loves to play jokes and then be like, "Oh, well, that's actually canon." So
I would kind of say that because again, we heard Marco say, well, yeah, the timelines do line up. Like, she was on a ship with Whitebeard at that time. I just can't say for certain if that's his, baby mama. But I think because it is being played the way that it's being played, that it will turn out that he will actually be his son. Because that creates more problems, I feel like, for them to have to deal with and for them to have to solve. But
let me just tell you, the amount of theories that have come out of the community to explain otherwise is just incredible. Like, I didn't know, like, people say I stretched it, but like the Weevil Whitebeard stretches to make it so that Weevil is not like Whitebeard's son is like I can agree that maybe Weevil is not his kid. I can agree, but then some of the theories, I was like, "Whoa, what are we talking about here?" But I had this theory, not a theory. It's just like a quick detail that Bakkens is 100,000% the baby mama, 100% the girl who broke Whitebeard's heart. I know. So here's why. Do you remember what Bakkens was wearing when we saw her?
Not specifically.
No.
Not specifically.
Oh, I think I heard about this, actually.
Go off.
Was she wearing
I dubbed it the Whitebeard fetish. Whitebeard has a fetish.
Leopard.
Yes.
Got it.
So, oh wow. So you heard, I don't know if it stemmed from me or maybe the SBS came around afterwards, but I know when I posted it, most people were like, "Oh my God, I can't refute this like idea, but like, this is so crazy." But yeah, Whitebeard has a fetish, and so leopard print, if you guys remember in chapter 233, when we're first shown Whitebeard, two interesting notes. I don't know if you guys remember this, but we'll talk. I could talk about Doflamingo in a little bit. Right behind Whitebeard is medicine, and that medicine is from Doflamingo. But the other detail is that he has a fleet of nurses, right?
Right.
Do you remember what the nurses are wearing?
Are they wearing leopard?
They all have leopard.
Damn, dude.
Leggings.
Damn.
Yeah, so it's like, like when you think about Whitebeard's like a senior citizen, he's just like in a retirement home. And, like these old dudes, they kind of just like, they're a little out of pocket when it comes to those things. And so
they get a little wild.
I'm just like,
too wild.
Whitebeard 100%. Of all the things he could have had his nurses wear, leopard print, it's Bakkens. Bakkens definitely broke his heart or some shit like that. And it's essentially, he was just like, all right, all my nurses need to be wearing what Bakkens wore. Why
do people want him to not be Whitebeard's son?
Because he's not, they don't think he's cool enough. I don't know. They're like, you can't live up to your father.
He's definitely not his father. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, for sure.
So there's to let you in on the power scaling world, people have Weevil up in like the top 20 strongest people in the verse.
He's supposed to be. They even say that. They're like, yeah, this guy's strong as shit, so probably. Like,
yeah.
I mean, what more proof do you need?
Yeah, and so like a lot of people take that like to debunk the power scaling to relation to Whitebeard. That's where it's like, people have the idea that through I could talk about it through Vegapunk and some craziness. That's where like we got into there was a theory about in vitro, and I was like, whoa, what are we doing here? And it was I'm sugarcoating it because there's a lot more, and I'm like, damn, that's a theory.
Well, just sure. there's so many things that we've seen, and again, we talk about things that haven't come back yet, and I do feel like I don't know the significance of all this Germa technology that hasn't like come back yet outside of the raid suit that we got and how they're creating these clones of people, right? On top of there was another thing that I was going to mention. Oh, Orochi talking about Vegapunk too in this part, saying demanding from CP0 that he's like, I asked for a battleship this time, but next time I want Vegapunk. I mean, that's something that when you brought up Vegapunk, my mind just kind of went there. and I need to hear any theory or any thoughts you have on either Vegapunk's his his purpose, not purpose, but what side does he truly stand on? What
or is he like just neutral and he just kind of
right? Yeah,
goes back and forth.
Yeah,
the Vegapunk is that was one of my earliest videos about Chopper and then Vegapunk. So I can talk about these things because I don't think I use too much details, so I can just redact those things. But we
usually don't plug our merch, but with only a few episodes left in our Done Piece series, what better way to remember, commemorate, celebrate this incredible journey than with a Done Piece or Volume 1 Jolly Roger hoodie, shirt, or sticker, which you can get for yourself by clicking on the link in the description or by clicking on the picture below this video. Oh, wow. There's a 99.9% chance that you'll love whatever you get from the Volume 1 podcast merch store. I'm not saying that. The cards are saying that. That's crazy. And just because Done Piece as we know it is coming to an end, don't worry. There will still be plenty of One Piece content coming in the future. So grab some Done Piece merch while you still can. And now, with the shameless plug out of the way, let's get back to the episode.
Going back to the whole Orochi and meeting with CP0 that we saw here.
Yeah.
Here's another thing that like so I have this series, like a Yonko series, where very obviously we see Big Mom here on Wano.
Right.
And with Kaido here, and then we get an idea of, like, Whitebeard was a previous Yonko that like had his own regime and that kind of thing. And so this was dubbed the Yonko saga in a lot of ways, to give us some light on the Yonkos. And it's very interesting because it's like, as we get to learn about these Yonkos, it kind of skews our understanding of what they're meaning to do. Like, Whitebeard had like he wanted a family, right? Big Mom wanted a utopia,
right? And
Act 2 was incredible for me because I remember when I first watched this, when we got to like, you know, a lot of my viewers know that so many things in this act made my blood boil. Like anything related to health,
right.
and kids, poisoning, that shit is just, you know, it turns me into Tomato Josh almost. Right? So,
yeah.
So
I like that. Yeah.
and when I first watched it, I always had this idea because from Punk Hazard, do you remember how Smile Fruits are made? The beginning of it, we get a rundown in this thing, but do you remember the start of the process?
The start of the I mean, all I really remember is. I don't remember the start of the process, but I do remember there being some obviously significance to them kind of like, it's their attempt at kind of like recreating like Vegapunk's fruit. So, but I don't know exactly like if they're actually pulling from that. I don't know the exact beginning process of it or remember it.
Right. So
yeah,
I think,
same.
Yeah, we around like the 940s, that's when Shinobu gives us the rundown again, like the whole scope of like what's actually happening here on Wano, and then gives us the context of, because Frankie was like, I thought we destroyed everything, and then but then they realize like, no, this is the end part. You guys dismantled the thing, but the damage has been caused, right?
Right.
And the very beginning of the process is a chemical called SAD. SAD.
Oh, right. SAD. No, I remember SAD. Yes.
And it's just, it's like incredible how we go from sad to smile, right? And we see how like, you know, absurd of a disability, I guess, Smile Fruit puts on the people, right? It's really, really debilitating. And so when going into Wano, I had this perspective that like there was some kind of like pharmaceutical like thematic going on, and then we go into Wano, we see they're poisoning the waters, the chemicals, all this stuff. And so then I have this analysis essentially saying that Kaido represents America, and like when you think about Kaido, he's known for his military might. And what did he do with the pharmaceutical stuff? It's to bolster his military to make them exceptionally strong. And that's right. America in a nutshell, ever since we became a world power. And that's where essentially this stems from, where I have a few videos, you know, where it kind of breaks down the Yonkos, who are the world power in the verse, and how Oda used our world's world powers to reflect on the world powers in One Piece, and how like there's literally like 1-to-1 where it's like Big Mom, her major thing, and it gets reiterated how many times even here, where she knows how to climb the falls to Wano because of her intelligence network. And we know how crazy certain countries go with, you know, gathering information and knowledge, not just on citizens, but espionage, spies, that kind of thing. And Whole Cake Island, you know, is so, all the underworld emperors, tyrants, they were, you know, embedded in her intelligence network.
Yeah, I heard, you know, a lot of people compare Big Mom to like Mother Russia, I guess.
Yeah. And so with Kaido, what I always brought up with the Smile Fruits was, to me, the Smile Fruits represented the opioid crisis. So essentially, the smiles are opioids, where when you think about like being
that's crazy.
In like the pain, you can't express yourself, you're stuck, and obviously opioids have this addiction. But
I surrender, dude. That's so crazy. That just like fucking blew my mind right now.
And it's so powerful, and when I watch that, I just kind of like it on top of how sad it already is, it's just like, you know,
through that lens, it's like even 20 times more devastating.
Yeah, and then, you know, and Oda isn't shy from the part where it's like he could have just had the people like resort to eating these fruits on their own, but no, he had Orochi essentially trick them into doing that, and that also reflects on our world too. And you look at how Orochi is positioned in Wano, where he's the shogun.
I'm losing my mind, dude. I can't even. I'm trying to like stay. You know, I'm trying to hold my physical form right now, dude.
And it's even crazier because while this was happening in Wano, that's when the, you know, I tell this to every person I bring this up on, like, I won't mention any of the names or logistics of the involved because I don't want you guys to get nuked on YouTube, but like but Orochi being the politician of Wano, we see that direct reflection with the opioid crisis, where it's like those people were, you know, taken to court for the exact same thing, literally the exact same thing. And so like the very same sentiment that carried over from the real world, hearing these people do these things with the power that they held, that just amplified. Like I wanted to red hawk like Orochi the moment like, that dropped. It was so rough. And then, you know, to again tie back on how much Oda set this up. If you go back to chapter 504, this is volume 52, one of my favorite volumes. We go to Doflamingo in the auction house at the very end of you know, that whole segment. And he has, this is one of my favorite lines, and I can't tell you all the context. When you guys finish, you guys will know why, but even this alone, he goes, slave trading is getting old. He's talking to Disco, and he says, now is the era of the smile. And that's in Sabaody. That's at the end of that part. And when we see that, what is the smile? We didn't know what the smile was then, but now we know from this chapter, or, you know, this act, the smile fruit is this. This is what Doflamingo wanted to replace the slave trade with. And when you think about how Orochi and Kaido have been using it to oppress their land, you can kind of get the 1-to-1 of how, you know, we go back to Fishman Island with Koala. Do you remember how Koala was came out of being a slave? She could only smile. She forced and oppressed all of her emotions, and she can only smile. And the whole character arc or that segment was Fisher Tiger breaking her out of that smile to like express other things. And then here we have this fruit that if you eat, you're essentially post-slavery koala forced for the rest of your life. Right. And
well, that's why, with Toko, that whole scene with her and Yasu, I mean, was so heartbreaking. And that is one little scene that I had to go back and I had to check out some of the anime for, because just hearing the laughter, like hearing these people not be able to express any other emotion, and Otoko with tears in her eyes, like, but also laughter. I mean, it was like haunting. It was so much more haunting than it was in the manga. Yeah.
And it's just crazy. Like, you can force a lot of things onto people. I think like in this series, like being a slave, like all these horrible things, like child trafficking, like all these things you could be put in positions that you can't get out of, but like to literally be given this artificial thing that like now you don't have even your emotions.
Yeah,
we're taking that away from you too.
Yeah,
like,
and again, like Paravision was saying, like looking at it through this lens of it being like a metaphor or an analogy for the opioid crisis, like this makes it even, like I said, so much more heartbreaking. And wow, I mean, that really, because again, every parallel that you're drawing is like it's too perfect to not be the case. Like it is just like, I hear things sometimes that are just so good that I just can't help but think like, this is definitively it. Like even if it hasn't been like said,
it's
like
just canon for me.
Yeah, this is like just canon for me. Yeah, it's so crazy.
And again, like when you recontextualize Wano with Act 2 in mind, I think a lot of people are going to raise their perspective and their how they received it, because again, it's like, yeah, you could look at it on the surface and it's like maybe this thing didn't happen, or maybe this thing didn't happen that you would have liked to have happened, or maybe this thing got glazed over and you didn't get to see it. But when you sit down and respect how much Oda put into this thing, is just, it's phenomenal. Like we talked for nearly 40 minutes about like just small details that are so meaningful. But if I were to put a number on it, I would say that I'm holding back on like 50%, and then there's another 30% that we could talk at length for.
Yeah.
Like we learn about black blades, even for current manga readers, right? This is not spoiler, because I went back to this panel and I just put it out there, and a bunch of readers just like, you're wrong. And I'm like, how am I wrong? It's said right here where there's in this line of thinking, we get from Gyokimaru, Zoro, he gets cut off about this conversation about black blades, and that is a blue ball moment for everybody, because it's like, everybody, the shonen, everyone wants to care about swords and powers and stuff like that, right? So getting blue balled on black blades is just a huge thing, right? And so all I said is that this just proves that there's a difference between a blackened blade and a black blade. So a blackened blade being what Mihawk taught Zoro to coat his sword.
Blade in Haki, right?
But Gyokimaru
versus
taught us
like
here.
Forging a sword in Haki.
Right. And so I said that, and then people were like, "What? No, it's the same thing." I'm like, what do you mean? It literally just told us the difference here. And again, that's something where, like, if you reflected on Act 2, then you might have like caught on to that. But there's so many details here that they're like, I think when most people reflect on Act 2, I think the big standout moments would be obviously the negative one with Big Mom's amnesia. I think the Zanami happiness punch.
Oh yeah.
But in terms of the more serious moments, like the Yasuie, that whole thing was just more ways than one, because we learn about the smile fruits. We see, the scabbards, the Akazaya, they at the very end of it, they reflect on the sacrifice that Yasuie provided them there, right? He didn't need to do all the things that he did. If anything, he's like the MVP of everything, because had he not did what he did, they would have been screwed over.
No, he went above and beyond. It's like, I might as well, it's like, this is my last chance.
Yeah.
And then his act alone just brought everything together, where, to me, when Luffy saw Zoro in Act 1, it didn't hit me that in the story they hadn't seen each other hadn't seen them together for like years or something like that. And then on top of that, when Zoro and Sanji met up,
it wasn't since Dressrosa that they had been together.
And that's just insane that like Oda facilitated this reunion, Act 1, Act 2, and it's like, and like, how many things can we expect of this one man? How much power can one man have? And Oda is wielding it like no other, man. It's insane. Yeah. It's insane. Absolutely mind blowing.
Yeah, there's a couple things I want to touch on too. because again, I think you're absolutely right that there is a difference between a blackened blade and a black blade. I do think that you're right, because we saw when Zoro does seem to take this blade, that I think the way you pronounce it is like Rio is the way they pronounce their word for Haki.
Yeah.
You see it kind of like exude, like come from the blade. So being forged by Haki means that like that Haki like lives in that blade being forged by it, right? Versus like how we see like Zoro just coat it, which we have seen him do many times in Haki. Like there's clearly a difference. So I don't know why anybody would be giving you shit about that. Like I am totally on your side with that. Yeah, I mean, just all the other things that we learned too. Big Mom's amnesia, I think for me, I don't know. I guess I really didn't. It didn't really bother me that much. I do think that there's a difference between people who are reading it week to week and people who go and read it all like in one shot. I think that if people are reading it week to week, maybe it would be a good just exercise or experiment to go back and read it like the act as a complete part, because it might change your perspective on it.
And I like it too, just because, you know, we have seen Big Mom as a child before, and she is like very much childlike when she is an adult, being like kind of like a brat, getting her way. I liked it because it kind of was like, you know, in One Piece we see it a lot with like your upbringing really molding you to who you are. I mean, Big Mom was always strong, and like, sure, she did a couple things at a certain birthday party that we don't talk about.
Yikes.
But it was cool to see her kind of have that reset and like actually being like a genuinely nice person. Like, oh, I wanted to bring that food back for everyone because they were starved. Like it was just a nice way to have this character who you know to be a big bad, to show like maybe if she did go down a different path, she would be a different type of person.
Right.
Yeah,
and yeah, go ahead.
Amazing take, because like that is quite literally the thing that I was catching on to, where it's like all Big Mom really lost was her memories, right? And all of a sudden she's back into this different state, this more gentler state, but she's not just gentle, but she's willing to, you know, throw down for the sake of certain, you know, morals that she has. And so it's like this almost feels like, and this is, you know, teaser into a future video of mine where maybe Oda included that for a specific reason, an exposition on her character, because it's one thing to see her as a child acting like that, you know, in her flashback, but it's another thing to see that prolonged as an adult just simply from memory loss, right? Because like memory loss, you know, amnesia is a weird thing, and even in our world where you could lose recent memories, old memories, a certain block of memories, your personality. It's very flexible what you could lose. But for Oda to do this the way he did it, it almost tells me that, hey, maybe there's something beneath Big Mom's exterior, so to say, or maybe you know, over time the person that she became over time is what created this person. If you take that away, like you were saying, Mehgan, then maybe she would have been on a different path, or maybe she still could be on a different path, depending.
It's
on
kind of like like in a sense, I guess, not to oversimplify it, but it could be like this like idea of like nature versus nurture, that like it was how she was nurtured, her life that like made her into this like villainous person. But take that away, at her core, who she is by nature, I guess, is like she might have this like kind side to her and in her still. But again, the world that she lives in, she's a product of her circumstance and the world, which we see a lot in One Piece too. Like a lot of these people aren't truly evil. They are products of their environment. But we saw on Fishman Island a lot too.
We see with, you know, Corazon and Doflamingo, like same upbringings, same type of ideals, or should have ideals, and they're completely on different paths.
Right.
Yeah. And they have completely different ways of thinking.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's a theme that I think we see a lot. I also wanted to say really quick too that I think what was so cool about Yasu's what he was called before, but then it's Yasu, and help me with the pronunciation, Paravision. Once he's revealed to be the Daimyo, it is Yasuie,
maybe.
I say Yasuie. Yeah,
Yasuie.
Okay.
Yasu the Hedgehog. I looked at pictures of Yasu the Hedgehog, and people literally drew like Yasu as Sonic the Hedgehog. I was like, oh my god.
Surprise me at all.
It shouldn't have, but I was like, what the heck?
But what he did, I think that was so more impactful than saving the plan, which saving the plan was like a super important thing for him to do. But it was that he also like publicly shamed Orochi in front of all his people.
Oh my goodness. That was from memory. It was just like a person of your caliber couldn't even devour Odin. And I was just like, damn, bro. Like, how are we going to lose this man? This man was so savage. So savage.
Bro, he was so savage. And he really planted that seed. Is already, we have seen planted throughout Wano that this seed already exists in so many people's minds. Yeah. That Orochi is this like, very paranoid kind of like
Spandam times like 10,000.
Spandam and
I prefer Spandam.
Right, Spandam and Wapol.
Yeah. This guy's the worst of the worst.
But people, he kind of watered that doubt, I guess, that seed of doubt in people's minds. And I think that is going to be so impactful because where our group is looking for members. Now you have basically taken all of the citizens of Wano and sparked that flame in them, I guess, or kind of stoked it. I guess.
Yeah, and I mean, like it is the prophecy was 20 years later. Like they've been in this circumstance for 20 years, kind of just waiting, and now they're seeing all of these things unfold. And I mean, it's the time.
Yeah.
It's the time where things are changed. And like, it was so beautiful to hear him, talk and like, shit talk and be like, you're nothing, you're garbage. Like you're a flea, you're, whatever. Yeah. You're a parasite because literally like, he's looking, he's on that,
crucifix.
Pretty much. And he's looking out at Wano and it is so beautiful. And he's just saying like, this would be nothing without the people. Like you pretty much stole this from the people who actually built it and are just like reaping the benefits. And I was just like, damn.
Which is, super symbolic within itself. And speaking of time, like I do want to talk and ask about this ability. I know you might not be able to give a lot away. Maybe you can omit things or maybe it hasn't been addressed again. I don't know, but I also heard someone at a certain point say a theory. I don't know if it's has been disproved or not, but just the way that the people of Wano talk, I mean, they have their own, and this is, again, to credit Oda to his world building, how they even have their own currency in Wano. Everybody else uses berries, they use gold, and even in Skypiea, they use a different currency. Mm-hmm. But also they call things different things. They call Haki, just like in Skypiea, it's mantra. These are to, I think, further sell the idea that these are separate cultures that have, their own sort of history. But they also just the way that they refer to these devil fruit abilities and the time ability, the way that it was talked about was almost like someone theorized that it might not be a devil fruit ability because we recently went back and we and there's a destination at the end of this freaking train, this ramble.
Take me to the destination.
We just recently talked about Little Garden again on a different podcast, and we were just brought back to Miss Golden Week, who had these crazy abilities, and upon revisit of that arc, discovering that ability that she was using wasn't a devil fruit ability.
Yes.
At all. Yes. Literally at all.
Yeah.
So those are the kinds of things. So I dubbed these characters devil seed users. So
I love that, dude.
So essentially there's a bunch of characters that don't have devil fruits but have these powers, and we actually get introduced to so I made this theory prior to analyzing Wano. So these are theories just sitting in my head. So once I started channel, I made them. And so Miss Golden Week, Paulie from Galila, he has the ropes, no devil fruit, he's basically Doflamingo, but with ropes. Like, he can hold up giants, he can just knot stuff, instant knife throwing abilities, like insane. Like, and then we have Wanze from CP5 or something.
Oh, your favorite.
Yeah, the ramen dude. He could just control, like, this is the point in the video. It's like, what's the difference between Wanze and then like one of Big Mom's kids that has a food devil fruit? Like, he's literally just controlling ramen. Like, he has the ramen no mi. Like, actually though. And so I call these people devil seed users. And on the Toki note, I'm not going to talk more about Toki, but more so it's interesting because Fishman Island was another place where the mark fruit was considered a curse. It was a cursed thing, and at the time it was like more reflected on the part where him being a fishman and having a devil fruit means that he loses the ability of being a fisherman essentially because he can't swim anymore. So that's like the curse. But then once we get to Wano, it's more like, wait, no, hold on. These recluse nations more so that don't interact with devil fruits on the daily don't know the name of devil fruits. So then it lends itself to the idea that when we're talking about who propagates the devil fruit idea, the name, we look at Ohara, the Poneglyphs are propagandized as like, ancient weapons and evil and all this stuff. And it's like, these devil fruits, they don't have to be called devil fruits. They could be like God fruits. They could be angel fruits.
Exactly.
They could be anything. And so, it's very interesting that there's still a negative connotation because curse is a little negative, but they still don't, I think on Wano, they more so call it sorcery. We saw that word get thrown around a few times. So that's not a negative connotation, but when the Oniwa Banshu, that's a new set of devil seed users that I want to talk about because I didn't have them originally when I made the theory, but then I was like, wait a second, none of these dudes have devil fruits either, but then they're just doing all this crazy stuff, and then they're like, what is this sorcery? They look at Brooke, that's sorcery. They look at Robin, that's sorcery. Everything's sorcery. So sorcery is a very different, that's not a devil fruit to me, that's not a curse to me. Sorcery, now we're talking about sorcerers, like did Wano have sorcerers? Like it's so interesting. And it makes you wonder at what point did the label devil fruits even come into play? Because like you said, like the Toki thing isn't it's not without saying from the very beginning. Toki means time. So then she has a fruit related to time. It's like her fruits, the Toki no Mi. So it's like, was she named after it, or the fruit named after her, or which way was she a sorcerer and she's just lying? Like I don't like what are you talking about here, right?
Yeah.
So it again, it opens the door for so many different things in this place for sure. And there's still so many things that we don't know. I think even in this act, we learn, the Big Mom pirates are fine about Big Mom being on Wano because they have her Vivre card.
Yeah.
What are Vivre cards? What are we talking about here? Just a paper that just lights on fire because of what? Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's still so many things. We're at Wano, we don't know what Vivre cards is. Even though Vivre cards in pre-time skip was such an important thing, right? Ace gave Luffy the Vivre card, and we know that Ace is now, connected to Wano in various ways. And it's like the Vivre card was a major thing, not just for Marineford, but also for Dressrosa. He gave out his Vivre card to a bunch of people. We still don't know where that stuff comes from. What is that sorcery? I would call that paper sorcery. If anyone, anyone making that stuff is definitely a witch of some sort. Like that's some nonsense.
Definitely.
So I think to address your, and I was trying to allude to this earlier, where it's like people. Like I think what happened, and I've been getting to conversations with a lot more creators who have been in this space for a long time, and when they see my content and talk to me, right, devil seed users, I'm surprised that wasn't a thing before. I was like, wait, hold on. Oh, sorry, I hadn't and so what they say is like, I think I got a comment that just kind of gave me a boost of serotonin. They're like, Parvisions like a pre-time skip. He feels like a breath of fresh air, and he's bringing all this, really interesting stuff to the forefront. And what I tell everybody is just like I don't get why everyone's so jaded and shoehorning, I guess, themselves at this point in Wano. Yeah, we're 1,000 chapters in, but we're still learning more things in Act 2 of Wano.
Yeah.
And like my biggest advice is open the synapses, open up your brain to all the possibilities, because I think that this is going to sound funny. This is going to sound hilarious. I think that you guys feel like you know more than current manga readers feel like they know about this, which is hilarious, because I think that's a sentiment throughout Wano, that as you go through Wano, you realize like, bro, One Piece could be 4,000 chapters.
Yeah.
And we'd still eat it.
Well, that's why, with Oda's new statement that he made, it makes perfect and complete sense. And you are such a breath of fresh air, I think. in the community as well, because we share that same excitement, that same passion, that same joy for this series. And that's why I tell Mehgan that too, like, go off, like, with these crazy theories, because I mean that's what it's all about. That's what part of the fun is. And like you said, anything in this world is possible. And just opening your mind to it and just allowing it to exist, and not to be this jaded fan that complains about an arc length or whatever. Like, people in doing research for this arc, people are saying like Oda lost his touch. Oda's
losing his touch. Everyone knows it.
And it's like, no, do you
like, what do you talk like?
Yeah, do you not consider yourself to be a fan of this series? Do you not remember everything that's happened and the implications even going forward? Like with his statement saying that the real One Piece is going to be One Piece. This like final saga, I mean, is a testament to just like, this man's genius, his brilliance, his plan. And yeah, that's why, talking to you about all this stuff, it reignites my passion even more so than it already is ignited. And I didn't think that was possible. I mean, like hearing you talk about these things, again, makes me want to go back again, because a lot of what we experience and feel and discuss and have talked on is just things that we have like learned or discovered through our first read. So going back and rediscovering all of these things, revisiting all of these things, and that's why like talking to you has been so amazing. Is that it really is a refresher in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But also, just puts things into perspective in a sort of bigger picture, I guess. Instead of like, trying to remember everything you can. It's a lot of information to take in, like trying to remember every detail from arc to arc, but then going back and having this discussion and just seeing how all those pieces perfectly fit together in the grand scheme of things. And I absolutely love it. I could have this conversation for 8 hours, dude, straight.
So what I will say, because you guys, early, I don't remember if this is on call, but like to come back onto the show or something like that. What I will say is once you guys do catch up, I would recommend, this is a shameless plug, but I would recommend some videos, and I can point out which ones are the most fun, but then my viewers are like, no, this one's fun too. And I'm just like, all right, cool. That one's fun too. But so like, I would love for you guys to watch those. And then we talk about like,
I was going to say that.
Yeah. Cause that'd be cause like one note is like, I'm always amazed at like this. You guys are now like the second or third group of people that are consuming One Piece not on a weekly basis that I'm interacting with, and the observation haki that you guys have for some of these things is like, there's I think like this morning when I was listening to Wano, I was like, good, that's a great catch. Like, a lot of people miss these details, and so like, shout outs to you guys, and I would love for you guys to watch those videos, and again, just like reiterating like the whole thing, and we're talking about Yasuie, the GOAT of this arc, if not like for Wano
for sure.
entirely.
Yeah.
He has this line that I didn't quite recognize. There's so many lines that I'm going to be using for theories now, but he says, after all, of the many living things in the world, only a human being has the ability to smile. And I was just like,
yes.
Damn, that hits so hard, and it keeps on hitting the more you think about it. And that's at the end of the day, like, with One Piece, it's like, I don't know what it is, but like, I always try to find a reason to smile, a reason to be happy. And like, even if things weren't like my theory, I'm never even like pegged on my theories. If my theories are wrong, I know 100% Oda did like something magnificent to a different level.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And like, that's the whole gear of my channel. The driving force is just like, hey, hopefully this makes someone smile and hopefully, makes someone happier. And I'm glad I was able to share as much as I did. We didn't get to, I mean, if you want to talk about the questions, I have more time too.
Yeah.
Because Mehgan had a bunch of questions we didn't even get to because I was too busy.
They're very important. They're very important.
I'm loving this too much to not ask these questions. Like, we should definitely ask you for sure. Number one, and I there's just like my mind's all over the place because I do have so many other things I want to ask you too.
Yeah, ask away. I have time.
Okay, so
it's funny because before in the thing, Mehgan was telling me like the time thing, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh no, I do so bad when it comes to collab.
We
like,
do too.
Yeah,
Me too.
yeah. Like every single time someone tells me an hour, it ends up like being 4 hours. I'm just like, oh shit. Like I'm so sorry. But
no,
last time that
don't
happened,
apologize.
King of Lightning, it was like 1 a.m. and he was just at the end of the call. He didn't eat dinner, and I was just like, bro, you should eat dinner. And he's like, bro, I had so much fun talking to you. I was like, well, all right, I guess 2 a.m. we're still talking. I guess it's fine, you know. So as long as you guys have time, I have time. That's
okay. So I guess I was just going over my notes too because I wanted to make sure there's again so many other things, which is why we definitely are gonna have you back. I love that idea. I was already planning that. I was thinking like I want to watch these videos once we're caught up, process them, digest them like ourselves, and then have you back on and discuss and talk more about them because even the few that you've dropped here. And I know have had to omit things because of spoilers.
Yeah, it's like it's a little diluted with some water.
Yeah. I can't wait to get like completely and fully into it. But one thing I really do want to ask, just like in terms of this arc, and there's so many other things too. But again, that's why we got to have you back. The one thing I don't want to forget now is Caribou. The significance of his return, right? Which we knew was going to be something that was going to be. Inadvertently, I guess, a super, super, super important character. Having overheard.
Did you guys have that perspective just reading, or did other people's input influence that, or is that just your own? Like you guys were experiencing the story and you felt that Caribou was important. I'm just curious.
We heard a lot of Caribou hate.
Well, I mean, I think for me,
it's just like people that are like, this guy sucks.
Well, yeah, but I think for me, like it was that he overheard this like super significant piece of information.
Yeah.
So that came from just us definitely reading it and consuming it on our own. Just like, how can he not be this important character?
Yeah, he's going to come back. Yeah, he knows too much.
He knows way too much. And to see him kind of returning in Wano is more proof of that he is going to, in some way, end up being like a far more important.
Well, because he's like, Luffy, let's collab. He's like, let's have a partnership. Get me out of here. We'll sign a deal, I guess. And Luffy goes like, okay, if you've changed, like that's cool. Obviously, maybe he hasn't fully changed, but if he's able to,
I think he's kind of
he's playing him, but. If it works to his advantage.
But the value of the information that he holds, I mean, and I think he knows that. Like, he knows the value of this information that he holds. And he's kind of keeping it tucked away for right now, at least in Act 2. But, there's going to get to a point where he uses that to leverage whatever situation that he's in. And with who or how is going to be, I think, super significant going forward. So, I don't know how much of it is addressed in Act 3. But... yeah, what are kind of your thoughts on him overall in the bigger picture and just his return here in Act 2?
So when he returned here, I was anime only, and I was just like, so this is what Oda's doing. Okay, this is interesting because it's like being anime only, you don't get cover stories, and that's a huge deficit.
It's so silly. I never thought of that. It's so silly.
Yeah.
It's so obvious.
Yeah. So while I was anime only, I think around Dressrosa is when I started realizing like the cover story stuff. I think probably earlier too, because like Anel's cover story is an important one that happened way earlier. So I knew of them, I just didn't keep up with them. But the cover story, there's a cover story where it's about Caribou, and Caribou gets captured by Drake, and that's the end of it. Of the cover story. And so now we get the situation where we see Drake in Wano, and we also see Caribou, and then we connect the dots. All right, here's how the cover story connects, and that's why Drake is here, and that Caribou was probably captured and brought here, which I bring up recently in a conversation. No, I don't. But with the Caribou stuff, I made a few videos on him, and I was just like, damn, people don't like Caribou. And I get it. Yeah, I get it. Like what he did on Fishman Island was definitely like, hey, yo, he's not my favorite for sure. But like, when you have a character like Caribou that's just like, he's literally in every arc now. Like every time skip arc, he's first of all, one of the main important things, he's the first logia of the time skip. That's like huge. Logias are huge, and he's the first logia we're introduced to. And then if he's not in the arc, he's in the cover story. If he's not there, he's there. And I think that sentiment is the most important thing going forward. Is just like there. I think the better way to talk about this would be to talk about this in reverse. Let me ask you guys questions about Caribou. So, you bring up a good thing with the he was privy to the knowledge about Poseidon, right? But do you remember what he said? Do you remember what he said afterwards? I think it's chapter 652. He was saying, this would be really helpful for that certain someone.
I vaguely remember that.
Vagapunkly
remember that. No, yeah, I vaguely remember that.
So by this point in the story, what are your takes on who that certain someone is?
I mean, it would just like, because again, that would have to imply like what are his connections, and I have to think back to when we were first introduced to him, because again, the way he was kind of a goofy. He served like a kind of initially kind of goofy role when he first kind of was on the Sunny, and then there was the whole barrel thing with him and Frankie. So I didn't really take him super seriously. I think maybe intentionally that was Oda's definitely intention, because he was played up to be in Sabaody at the return of the time skip, after the time skip, to be this like very powerful, I guess, or threatening character, and then he kind of quickly became this other thing. So who that person would be, and let me kind of think back to his significance and that power from Sabaody. I mean, in the government, could he be working with the government in some capacity? Could he be working? Is it bigger than the government? Yeah, is it big? Yeah, but again, that would imply then that he has connections to those people. Why, in my mind, I can't connect why he would have a connection.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Like, Doflamingo kind of knowing what's up with a lot of things, because Doflamingo does have a lot of connections, does have a lot of intel, but I mean, it would be like either them, Emu, or Doflamingo.
But Doflamingo was taken care of essentially, right? Because like in this thing with Orochi, they were like, Doflamingo's out of the picture, right? And then with the Reverie arc, we see again that he's 6 foot under essentially.
Yeah. And that's why, like, I'm just thinking this through out loud, but yeah, go ahead.
I'm asking you guys questions because like,
but that's the spark. I think that's the spark that I think I need.
By asking these, I'm going to just highlight more things for you guys to think about. So then here's another thing that to think about is, he's the first logia introduced to the time skip. And don't you find it weird? He's a rookie, right? On Sabaody. And, from what we gather from him and rookies in general, why would he ever like sign under somebody, right? Like that's just like a weird, concept that's just like, when you think about the Trailblazers, right? Kid was the first kid, Luffy, Law. They would never, none of the Supernova would ever, initially bend the knee. But we find out in this arc that with what happened with Hawkins, Apu, Kid, that wasn't an initial thing. That was a character specific, possibly type of thing, right? Whereas in general, the Supernova, these great pirates, they're not bending the knee to another pirate like that. That's a weird thing. Now, another interesting thing to bring on the surface, since you bring up Caribou, was one of the things Fishman Island and Sabaody the return to Sabaody was a debut Haki, right? And one of the debuts of observation Haki was used on Caribou. Now, do you remember that scene and what they referred to Caribou as?
Wet-haired Caribou. No, I don't know. What they referred to as.
To give you the timeline, it was chapter 650, right after Robin brought up Caribou, and then Jinbei was giving the lowdown on the new world and what was happening.
I don't remember. What they referred to him as. Do you remember, Mehgan?
A slime ball.
It would have made more sense if they did. But so Sanji, Luffy, Zoro, the observation Haki users, right? They're sitting up with Jinbei, and Luffy's ignoring Jinbei, and they're having a banquet. And then Luffy turns like, hey, you guys sense that? He's talking to Luffy, to Zoro and Sanji, and he's like, do you guys feel like there's a wild beast in the palace?
Right.
Yeah, and then right afterwards is what we see. Caribou's in menace mode on Shirahoshi, and
Menace
they,
mode.
they clock him. I mean, there's no other word for what he was trying to do.
Yeah.
So like,
right.
Yeah.
Wild. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I mean, so like, what are your thoughts about that? Calling him a wild. This is observation Haki, right? The ability to sense another spirit. Rayleigh went to Ruskaina, and it's like there's 500. He could probably tell what these animals were too.
Right.
So then we have the situation where Luffy, whether you want to agree that his observation Haki was slated there and it grew during the Katakuri fight, or it was growing the whole time. My opinion is more so he didn't really grow Haki there in Fishman Island. And that observation Haki is a demonstration of like the ability to sense something in a person. And it was like, he called him a wild beast. He hasn't called anybody else that.
Yeah.
So do you have any ideas on that?
Shit. I'm gonna try to maybe think it out a little bit, and
think it out.
This is or talk it out, I guess.
Beast.
And this is gonna be I'm telling this to the audience, so I'm just like kind of talking it out.
And while you're thinking, just for the current manga readers in the audience who maybe haven't seen my video on this, probably most of you guys haven't seen the video, but I have a Caribou video. It'll be in the thumbnail. If you're wondering what I'm talking about, click on that video, and then you'll have it'll be so funny because I'm just the way you guys are talking about this is just hilarious.
Wild beast would make me two things jump to mind, and I don't know why when you said wild beast, like this just also sparks something else. But the first thing I guess I think about is, you're talking about all of the like Vander Decken, and we're talking about, Mihawk, and we're talking about like, these concepts of, Mihawk being a sword or Vander Decken being like a mushroom, and like the idea of shadows eating devil fruits. It's like that sort of train of thought has sort of made me feel or maybe start to think then that maybe Caribou is also not what he might just seem on first glance, I guess.
He's a caribou.
He's an actual caribou. But also, and this is an aside, Mehgan, my next thought might take us off a course a little bit. So do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, it is very odd that how specifically Luffy would say that, because if he did feel his presence, he would just be like, someone's in the castle.
Right.
Like, he's in Vander Decken, not Vander Decken. Caribou's in the castle. Like, he
and Rayleigh
like,
also gave us the difference between like a person and an animal, right?
Yeah.
Like with the observation Haki.
Yes.
So you can definitely sense that, which is just very interesting.
And I wouldn't think it was just like a you said menace mode. I don't think it was just a setup for like the reveal of what he was doing.
Right.
Like, it's very specific.
Right. See, I'm starting to think, that there is like something else to like him and who and what he really is, because again,
he's not a human.
Yeah,
I mean, he looks fucking wild.
Yeah, he looks. His hair's too wet. But because we talk about that, and we were talking about that in a previous episode too, starting to feel like we were getting a grasp on, who people were or where they came from in terms of their race, or and specifically with the minks and going back and forth, and there was a moment where
minks. It's like, are you a minx or are you not? Are you just an animal or are you
we were convinced, I guess we had just kind of maybe assumed that Morgan's was a mink, but then we were told later, or it was brought to our attention later that he isn't, right?
No.
So it is like Caribou then would be a beast. He would not be a human. There's something else to him. But also, and again, I don't want to get too off track, but this when you said wild beast, this popped into my head too. We meet these at the end of Act 2, we meet these super mysterious creatures called numbers. And I have
they're scary.
Yeah, I'm trying to really.
They're monsters. Like, they're shadow monsters. They're
shrouded in definitely like shadow. So they're silhouetted. We don't get to see many details of them, but like these creatures, like what and who they are and what significance they hold. I was really, especially before this call too, I was trying to rack my brain. Those are just my thoughts. But if you have anything to add to, I basically added nothing. If you have anything to add,
with the numbers thing, what I will say is, I think when that scene came out, I think most people thought back to, or at least me, maybe I'll just speak for myself, the Floridian Triangle, the shadows, like those giant things. That definitely felt like this ominous giant thing. And then we also saw before Skypiea, the giant shadows, and it felt, I'm like, how big are these things? Like, where are these things? How are they here? Like, there's so many things. But so going back to the Caribou thing, it's funny because your line of thinking, you're like, Decken is a mushroom, Mihawk is a sword. And that's where like the brand comes in. It's like, once people fall into that line of thinking, they're like, oh no, the intro to my video is like, the way I see the world is by making connections. So let me connect you to my vision, the Parvision. And and so I rarely ever say that because it's just a clip I copy and paste. But recently I just have people like say the line, and I was like, what line are you talking about? And then they write it out, and then it's there. But so I love that I'm able to, I was asking these questions and you were going down an interesting line of thinking. You're going to have a good laugh when you finally get to the video. But the one other thing that I would add that is relevant, when talking about logias, isn't it weird, right? Okay, we have Blackbeard. Blackbeard's a logia that can't go intangible. We talked about him earlier, right? Caribou just has infinite storage. What?
Right.
Like, how does one, like, what other logia has some kind of, utility?
Am I getting too off track then by saying that if and again, this is what the theories do to my brain, because I really can live in them forever. But are we saying then that if like inanimate objects, shadows, all these things, and you're bringing up infinite storage, can eat devil fruits, especially inanimate objects, which is super interesting and has been super interesting since the moment we were introduced to that concept. But are you then saying that you're talking about logia, but that somehow, like, let's just use like that, like a puddle of water could like eat a devil fruit or something? You know what I mean? So we saw an interesting display in Whole Cake Island, and I haven't gone back and actually like looked at it to really figure this out. But apparently Big Mom put a homie into a water wave. Like, if we can be doing that kind of thing, who knows? I mean, this is the thing that I always bring up, that like with Mihawk as a sword, this is one of the funnier points that's like people are like, oh, this is too crazy. I'm like, really? Is it too crazy? Because we have a starfish in the One Piece world that thinks he was a human from day one and is just a human. People thought he was a fishman, but no, he's a starfish that just like thought he was a human from birth, from the womb, and just can speak. And it's just like, and Randy Troy, I'm sure you guys have heard of him too. He, like, that's one of his favorite characters too, because that character drops so many important lines. And the important line when he says that is that he says, and this is pre-time skip, so we weren't using the word Haki, but he was saying willpower is what drives the world.
Yeah.
And obviously with a post-time skip lens, it's like, Haki is what drives the world. And if you can go from a starfish to a human essentially, and just with Haki, what else can you do, right? Like, there's so many different things. There's so many different things. And like, this is Act 2. One of the other things I just want to point out was like, Act 2 is really important for this weapons idea. What kind of can be weaponized? And so Shinobu gives us a few interesting lines to me. Like in 926, she says, "There's no weapon deadlier than a mature woman." And I'm just like, yo, that's a fire line.
It is.
And then like in 928, it says, "Love is deadly and it can be weaponized." Or that wasn't the line, but that was like the thing. Like, I think that was the chapter Hiyori was essentially like just sucking dry all these dudes and just using all these for pun may or may not be intended, but
yeah. I was like, that's two ways you can take that.
And then and later on we see like falling in love makes a man soft, and there's so many lines in this act about love, and it's funny because I can give you guys a perspective, a quick rundown. One of my other major theories that is essentially the one theory that I will outright admit that I will go illogical for a little bit, because I just believe it's gonna happen, or if it doesn't happen, it's true, which is elemental Haki. And the reason why is because we see, like, you know, fishmen have these powers, minks have these powers, and it's like, and now we're on Wano, we learn about Rio, and Rio, like, you were, you know, it's an extension of Haki. I wouldn't say, you know, this is a huge discussion for the manga readers because it was getting, you know, Rio is just Haki, but Armament Haki is the base, and then Rio is the advanced form, the more proper terms, I guess, is what we're calling it. So Rio is a portion of Haki. And so now we have 1, 2, 3 of these race of people that just have these powers that we just don't have access to, apparently, like at least the Straw Hats don't. And then there's like so many times where Sanji is the main character, right? He just spawns flames and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so this is my first YouTube video. I started on TikTok. My first YouTube oriented video was Elemental Haki, talking about how all of these things may be a version of Haki that we don't know yet, we don't understand yet, or it's an add-on to it, and we're going to learn it later on, possibly. And so Sanji, you know, he can skywalk, he can blue walk, he has flames. Then we have this, you know, in Skypiea, and thereafter with Ryuma, Zoro is throwing sword slashes like in the air and all that stuff. And so when we're talking about elemental Haki, I'm going to be remastering this theory with a larger context using emotional Haki. So one of the things is that if we're saying that Sanji gets a lot of slack, and I heard you guys talking about Sanji a little bit here and there, like you guys are Sanji fans essentially, right?
I think that we always were. There were moments where we were a little exhausted by, you know,
it's a shonen anime manga, so they're gonna be doing that.
But we do love him. Yeah.
I think one of the main things that people always refer to is Fishman Island. But the thing is, I have it's a 3-part thing that I just made it together. It's an hour, 30-minute video just on Sanji and his future potential power-up. And I recontextualized Fishman Island because essentially what Oda did was he inserted like a rehab thing straight out of this book from Rene Descartes, Passions of the Soul. Like literally line by line, there's like what Sanji went through and how he solved it is what he talks about mastering your passions and talking about that. And then when I looked at it more so on a macro level, it applies to more than just Sanji. It applies to all the characters, and I think that there's 6 passions that he lays out. And the quick tidbit was that when you think about Sanji, he's a very emotional man, right? And that to me is done intentionally. And the thing about it, Sanji's a French character. He has lots of French inspirations for various things, his moves, his cooking, that kind of thing. Cooking, and the funny part about it is that love isn't actually like a French thing necessarily. That was like a propaganda type of thing that got applied on later on. But the real things related to France is cooking, chef, which makes sense with Sanji, but then also emotions. Emotions was a word coined by French philosophers. Prior to that time period, it didn't exist. They just thought of passions. They didn't have a word for emotions. And so what I'm essentially saying is when you think about emotions and passions, when you think about Sanji, when he gets stimulated by something, he just goes off, right? He gets the hard eyes and just gets moved, essentially. And that is the exact description that Rene Descartes puts on these passions, because he also didn't have the word emotions yet. I think it was invented maybe 50 years after him. But it was essentially that when you're passionate about something, your body will move you without you consciously doing that. And that is what we see from Sanji. And the way you conquer it is you gain awareness of it. And then the first thing is you freeze it. You stop everything. And then what did we see? We saw when Sanji with Sashiro Hoshi, he reanalyzed the situation and thought about it differently. And then what did he do? He froze like stone, which is exactly what happened. And he changed his passion to joy, which is another one of the passions, right? There's love, joy, hatred, sadness. And then there's two others, desire and wonder. And there's so many more things with emotions. And so this is a quick tidbit. This is an exclusive for your thing, because I talked about it with one other creator, but I haven't made a video on it, was that love is a huge one, because Dragon, you guys, Luffy's dad, Dragon.
Yeah.
I've always been on this thing that he has elemental haki. He doesn't have a devil fruit. And if he did have a devil fruit, there's one type that, we don't have to talk about now, but I've always been on the vibe that he doesn't have a devil fruit. It's just pure haki. And then I stumbled upon this line that just makes me laugh. And it's just so funny, because when I make this video, it's going to be hilarious, but it's just like, I think this might be where Oda's going. And the line is in chapter 522. We learn about an Amazon lily, that there's a saying in the East Blue. And we know that Dragon, Garp, and Luffy, East Blue. And Garp, has the fist of love, right?
Yeah.
And the love part, love is an easy one, but that connects to Rene Descartes', passions, right? And there's a few other ones, like when Law debuted Gamma Knife in Dressrosa.
Yeah.
That's an electric power, right? Mm-hmm. And it's really weird, because how is, you could say that's an operating room, maybe it's a defibrillator, but to me it feels like, no, that's like straight up just like a different power. Yeah. And the title of that chapter is called Desire. And desire is one of the passions that Rene Descartes talks about in the same light of electricity. And it's very, very interesting. With Fishman, and I say Fishman Island is with sadness. And so sadness, the way he describes it is when you recognize that you yourself are a demon or evil, or you're perturbed by this thing that is so core to you that you can't remove it, and you beat yourself over it. And that's the true sadness. And what do we see in Fishman Island? That Fisher Tiger is, by the end of it, he's just like, in reflection of what Otahime said, he's like, I'm afraid of me. I'm afraid of the demon in me. And that is the thought when Jinbei is apologizing to Nami. He's taking on all the thing, because all the responsibility, even though it's not his, it's because he's truly saddened by this feeling. And then we see that Koala is a character, right, in Dressrosa, who's using Fishman karate, but she's not a Fishman, right? And it's like, so then that alludes to this idea that these powers aren't exclusive to these races. These powers can be accessible. So how can they be? It might be through Haki. Now, the emotional aspect is like, maybe not all people would be able to access it. Maybe you need a certain emotional, threshold for understanding it. And all of the Fishman race have been oppressed, even the children. That's what Otahime said, which is why we see that they might all be having the capabilities of it. But then we have Koala. And the interesting thing about Koala is she's one of the main characters that we know of that can sympathize with the fishmen, because she went through, if not the same thing, worse than what some of the fishmen went through. Only like Aladdin and Fisher Tiger could really understand what Koala went through, because the other ones weren't, they would join the crew, but they weren't celestial dragon slaves necessarily. Some of them were, but only her. And so she has this emotional threshold of, if you remember, she was holding back in because she was in a crowd of fishmen as a human, and the humans were oppressing them. And so she's sitting there with all these people, and she's the evil one in their eyes, but she's just trying to live. And so that sadness of recognizing your own evil might allow you to, access these water powers. And so now connecting back to the love thing, Garp has the fist of love. And if Dragon is related to Garp in any way, and I was like, maybe he has love powers. And the one thing that we saw from Dragon is crazy wind powers. He has the wind Grama, that's his ship. In Logtown is the wind. In Goa Kingdom, it was wind. Every single time he's in a scene, there's the word wind. And we learn in chapter 522 from Amazon Lily that there's a saying in the East Blue, and we don't know where it originated from, but it says that love is a hurricane. And I was like, yo, that's insane, because everyone thinks that I walked King of Lightning into this trap card. I was like, all right, you disagree with me on all this elemental stuff. What is Dragon's power? What is the peak power? And he said, hurricanes, tornadoes. I was like, perfect. Love is a hurricane. And I showed him the line, and I was just like, he was like, oh my God, oh my goodness. And so I just wanted to drop that perspective on to you, because, it's one thing to see the series in hindsight and put that on perspective. But a lot of people are like, I wish I had this before I saw some things so I can think about it. Yeah. So like, at least think about it, whether or not it's true, it's a theory, right? But it adds some, context moving forward to what you might see, what you might experience, and what, current manga readers might experience too. Because again, like, I think, in my opinion, the last saga is going to be something that none of us, all of this was build up. All of this is build up. And this was to say that this was the tip of the iceberg isn't even true. Like, I don't think like Oda has showed us anything of what he originally planned for. Yeah. And every new piece of information further reestablishes that. And so I think personally that, and this is from, I don't know if you guys watch Strong World, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if you guys knew this, but Strong World was Oda's first movie that he was a part of, right?
Yeah.
But it wasn't his first movie. Did you know that?
No.
So his first movie, he wrote and completely threw out.
I did not.
So he originally, so they the main producer, editor, animator, director, one of those terms, right? He was just like, Oda, we need your help. Like, the morale's down in the studio. One Piece is dying, whatever. This was, this was around like Thriller Bark around that time. So essentially, Strong World was a morale boosting, that was the point of the movie. And so Oda sat down and he wrote a movie, and it was not Strong World. The first movie he wrote was Crystal Logship Pose. I think that's the first thing. And so in an interview, he talked about it, and the guy was like, wait, what? There was a whole movie? And he's like, yeah, I tossed it. And the reason he tossed it wasn't even more so that he didn't like it. It was that the concept of the movie was that it was an emotional tearjerker. It was supposed to be a whole, like, we don't even know what that is it a rom-com? Like, what are we, like, Oda has made us cry many times for sure, but on the emotional tearjerker movie, that's, you guys just watch Stampede, that's just balls to the wall.
That's like non-stop.
Yeah. And so the reason why he didn't put the movie out was he sat back after writing this whole thing, and he reflected, and he was just like, you know what, like, I don't want to force emotions down a viewer's throat, like in the span of 2 hours. Emotions are something I don't want to force on a character. I'd rather them develop over time. And then you think about, like, okay, One Piece is 25 years. Okay, so he's developing emotions for One Piece, like, and then the other context of why that is important to me. This was his first movie he wrote. 100%, it's going to be really core and tied to his, feelings and desires with where the series goes, and that leans even more into Strong World. And I have a video on this, and I don't think you guys can watch it. No, you guys could maybe, I have to go through it. Maybe you guys can watch it already, but it's essentially saying Strong World was Oda's sandbox for the time skip. When you look at, everything. So here's one example. Caesar Clown. Caesar Clown shared the same voice actor as Dr. Indigo. From all the way back then.
Yeah.
All the way back then. He had the same powers. Actually, Dr. Indigo was a devil seed user. He didn't have a devil fruit, but he had chemical powers. And there's nobody can tell me there was the IQ plants and the way they work, devil fruits. Then they were synthesized to make SIQ, and then you get smile fruits.
Yeah, exactly.
Shiki is a lion. Lions are the king of beasts. What is Kaido? Kaido is introduced as the king of beasts. Shiki has an army of animals that were turned into monsters. Kaido has an army of,
dude, holy shit.
And so then you look at like Sanji's plot, and there's way more in the video, but then you look at Sanji's plot, or not Nami's plot in the movie is essentially Sanji's plot reversed. in Strong World, where Sanji left for Whole Cake Island on his own accord to save his crew, and Nami does much of the same thing, thinking that she was be protecting them, but also her homeland, which is the same thing with Sanji and Zeph. And so more and more, Strong World from every aspect is a storyboard for the time skip, and it's so crazy that what the movie came out like maybe 10 years ago, and like it's I started my channel last year and it was still relevant. It's still relevant. That's so
crazy. That's fucking crazy.
And so now if we're talking about a movie like that was literally like I was about to say sloppy seconds, but you know, it came after Crystal, this emotional if there was one thing that, you know, I would commit a crime for, it would be dumpster diving for this script. I know what that's for. Yeah. And I hope that Oda one day releases that thing, because you guys have you guys heard of Road to Laugh Tale?
No.
Okay, so then we don't need to talk about that. So, but you know, Oda was doing some announcements, and one of the things that he was talking about was like, here's some ideas that I didn't do, or you know, like some old things. And so I was like, Crystal Logship, are we getting
right?
And then we didn't get it, and I was like, oh man, I guess I just have to commit a crime. It's whatever. I'll be a pirate, a dumpster pirate, whatever.
Well,
I just need to find that movie.
That goes back to even like Wanted and all those stories too, and the implications of like, you know, all these other stories that he told, which I could talk about forever. Dude, I truly and honestly feel like Luffy on the island with Ray Lee after this conversation. Dude, I feel like I got leveled up right now, dude. I feel like I got leveled up. I feel like my mind is like been cracked wide open, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, this has been an amazing conversation, an informative conversation, an exciting conversation. Holy fucking shit, dude. I mean, there's infinite amounts of conversations and questions. I mean, I need to have with you in the future.
Oh yeah.
But before,
it's a little late because you guys are already here, but I think it still applies. I'll be waiting for you on Wano.
Right, yeah, it still applies. We do have speed round. Let's do a speed round of these questions. Yeah. So, you want to ask him, Mehgan? I think I know what one of yours is going to be.
You can ask first.
You ask first. You ask first.
Okay. Classic favorite straw hat.
Okay.
And why? And it's, you know, it's usually we say that like Luffy is like you start with Luffy, so he's zero.
Like Luffy, excluding Luffy. Yeah,
excluding Luffy.
Because he's Luffy.
Yeah. And then you can go up from there.
This is a funny question because I give a lot of love to all the Straw Hats. Like, Conqueror's Haki is a thing now. One of the first things I said the first time I showed my face on screen, it's funny because people still bring this up, is that I was talking to, this was Brago. Oh yeah, wow, I was kind of crazy for this, but I told him on call that like I could convince you that every Straw Hat has Conqueror's Haki or will get it. And so he was like, whoa. And then I got a lot of backlash for that. I was like, yep, I can give you more than enough proof for, you know, if Oda wants to take the story that way, he can. If he doesn't, he doesn't, right? But like with what he gave us, I can make an argument for most, except for, I said Jinbei at the time, because with Jinbei, he was older, and like if he were to have Conquerors, it would make sense for it to happen earlier. And what I said in the thing was like, if Oda wants to give it to him, he just gives it to him. There's probably not going to be an explanation. He's just going to give it to him. And so if that ends up happening, that ends up happening. And so, but everyone else, I'm like, and they're like there's a whole like, you know, Zoro versus Sanji fandom. I'm like, I love Zoro and Sanji. Growing up, Zoro was, you know, obviously he's like he felt like a big brother. Sanji was always like a you know, a pure age brother, that goofy brother.
Right.
And then Usopp was always I always like sympathized with, empathized with. He felt a little close to home, and that was actually my first big video. It's sitting at like 250,000 views right now, the Usopp video, which is hilarious because I was like, I did that video as a test run for my future Straw Hat videos, and the first one I was like, let's do Usopp, and so I did that, and a lot of people came out of it and it's like, yo, like the power that it was a end of series power theory video for Usopp, and it's still out of pocket. Like people are like, whoa, you still believe in this? I'm like, hell yeah, Usopp's getting this shit. And they were telling me that like whatever power you described at the end Usopp has, that's what kind of Haki you have with your channel. And I'm just like, wow, that's crazy. I didn't even make this video for that. Right? So for in terms of favorite Straw Hat, I think the one I lean towards now, even in Whole Cake Island, Jinbei was wild for sure. But
dude,
I think the one that I want to highlight is the Going Merry. Because in the 1000th episode, and then 1000th chapter, obviously this isn't spoilers, but obviously that there's always going to be like a Fishman Island, they had the roundup of Straw Hats and you get the lineup and it's like the wallpaper thing. You get that all the time, right? So, they had that and it's like this love for the Straw Hats, and then the Going Merry wasn't there. So I made a music video for the Going Merry. And like I edited, it was not me singing, it's my friend singing. And the whole point of that was like, yo, we're all forgetting about the OG #1 Straw Hat. Going Merry was like the GOAT and is literally a GOAT.
Literally a goat, dude. Literally.
Yeah, and so to this day, I think Going Merry will always be like, no one can beat Going Merry in my mind. Obviously, characters are characters, and I love Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, but like the Going Merry has a special place in my heart for sure. Wow.
Well, last question then. Damn, what a crazy answer. I love it. Last question, I guess, would be then. I know. It's a hard question and maybe not even a fair question, but in terms of like arcs, which arc do you connect with the most? Do you consider to be your favorite? But I think that's, it's, I want to ask it, deeper than that. Like not just what's your favorite, but like which one do you really connect with?
Yeah, like not like a ranking, like based off of like what it's like, personal.
Yes.
Enjoyment overall, what you got from it. How you came out the other end after reading it.
This is a hard one again because I just love One Piece so much that like even choosing the worst arc for me is like, because like people say the Long Ring Long Land arc is like the worst one.
No, they're wrong. They're wrong.
And it's like we got introduced to Aokiji there, and I ran through those lines because people were asking me to people have been wanting me to do reviews for the arcs, and I just don't have the time to yet. But I went through there because I reread everything except for that part because I just neglected it. But then when I went back, I was like, yo, hold on. Oda said some crazy things in probably amongst the series. Some of the craziest things were said in that arc that just make you like, for example, he described Foxy's powers as an unidentified or newly discovered particle. I was like, where are we discovering particles? Like that's just incredible, right? So when you said connect, that to me, I think Whole Cake Island connected with me a lot because Sanji's backstory, I made a whole 2-hour long video on Sanji, but I didn't even include all the parts that connect back to me. Just the sentiment, the feeling, the family, that stuff all resonated really, really hard. And then in terms of actually wait, hold on, I can't say this one. I'd say what I would say my favorite volume though is volume 52, Roger and Rayleigh, because like the amount of work that Oda put in, obviously you guys can recognize I love connections. I love when things like overlap. That volume, and then Fishman Island. Oh my goodness. Yeah. I think my last like 10 videos and my next 10 videos all relate to just volume 63 and so much more. And so that being said, like people have been asking me, but what about Wano? Where do you rank Wano? I don't do rankings or ratings yet, at least. But in terms of cerebral brain capacity, like things that even overloaded me, and like and give you context, like prior to being in the manga, like I was like doing stocks and stuff with pharmacy, doing brother, family business. I had a lot on my plate. I watched like 10 animes a season, so much manga, and when Wano hit, the amount of thinking that it required for me to digest, and people can see if you're, a current manga reader, I have live reactions to the latest chapters. When I read the chapter, I can read in my head like 5-10 minutes. That's generally how people read. But to share my thoughts,
Right.
and you can see from this recording, to share my thoughts, to get through the entire chapter, I end up taking like an hour almost, because every chapter, especially recently, has just been like activating all the synapses, where like One Piece is a story where you can, see like, weather phenomenon is a thing. And like, I get into like physics, and that's where my background in engineering and science and all that stuff come into play. And a lot of people like it. And Oda is just like somehow just making so many things relevant, where I'm talking to like a marine biologist. I'm talking to like, people who are environmental science and various political aspects, the Kaido America story, just so many different things where it's like, how do you make a story that just, you have all these multidisciplinary people who are from finance to science to like, philosophy, all connecting in Wano. And that to me is why, I've never seen conversations like this. And I've been a part of so many conversations where like my wife will be listening on. She's like, you were just talking about like a 1950s philosophy, then this like, Greek mythology. And then you went to like, like clouds and global warming. Like what are you talking about on your thing? Cause she doesn't watch One Piece. Well, she's getting into it, and she's starting off with a rubber boy sailing from a barrel. And then here we are, and I'm talking about like physics and stuff. And she's just like, huh.
Like, how the fuck does it get there?
Yeah. And Wano is not just bringing the story together. I think Wano is bringing like our world into the story and our world together. And I think that's where I really appreciate Wano more than not, because, and we didn't even talk about like the morals, the history, oppression, all those things that make my blood boil, but are very important that, especially in an anime like this, you wouldn't expect to go so deep. I think you guys were talking about how like in the panels we saw like hangings and various things that are very dark subjects, and people don't normally equate to One Piece, but we're not just getting it, this is the introduction to it. This is the introduction to all of this stuff. Yeah. And so favorite arc, definitely Wano for sure.
Woo!
For sure.
Wow, dude. I went on a freaking journey right now. I love it. Dude, honestly, from the bottom of my heart, dude, thank you for being here. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for talking to us.
So much fun.
I mean, you have this energy, you have this way about you, this charm that I feel like I could literally talk to you for hours, upon hours, upon hours, upon hours. There's so many other things that I feel like we barely scratched the surface. So many other things I would love to pick your brain about, talk to you about. I know we both would.
Yeah.
So, I mean, definitely would love to have you back in any way, shape, or form. This was an absolute blast and an absolute pleasure. Thank you for being here and talking
Thank you so
about
much.
all of this stuff with us, man. Thank you. Round of
Thank
applause
you
for Parvision, dude. Come on, man.
Thank you for bringing me on. I keep telling everyone this, like, channel aside, the subscribers aside, I'm just grateful that finally being able to talk to people who love One Piece, or are passionate or getting into it and are becoming passionate. And that's where, like I was telling you guys at the beginning, like I was thanking you guys for the timing of you guys getting to Wano when you guys are is just incredible, because the entire community should be like, it's refreshing to see how a new person views it. And so again, like, I just appreciate the conversation for sure. Pick my brain whenever you guys get time, message me. I'll be, I'll make time whenever, and whatever the conversation is, I'm down 100%.
Damn.
So
dude. Hell yeah. That excites me so much. Everybody watching, everybody listening, if you don't know or haven't subscribed to Parvisions Channel yet, what are you doing? This man just went off right now, and there's plenty more deeper dives on this man's channel. Go subscribe to him if you're not. Follow him. I mean, we'll put the link to his channel. We'll put any other links to any other socials or anything. And Parvision, if you want to plug anything yourself, please, now's the time to do that. Go ahead and let people know anywhere else they can find you, or anything else they need to do to support you, because you are a rare mind.
Thank you again. So yeah, I mean, basically my main channel is Parvision, where I mainly do theories, but I've had a few people get upset at me because I stopped putting my chapter reviews on my channel, but the chapter reviews were hurting my thing. So I moved it to a podcast format where I could just go off. So it's like 30-minute plus of me talking about the latest chapters. And it was funny because I was getting people who watch the anime only and they don't even read the manga listening to my chapter reviews. And I was like, wait, what are we doing now? And it was for months. And then like when I stopped it, I just completely, I didn't forget, but that's when I learned about this group of people. So then I was like, all right, move it to the podcast. Let's do it that way. So that's my main thing right now. Outside of that, you can clearly tell I'm comfortable with like, you know, speaking people. So like I have streams. I stream 3 times a week. So twice on YouTube and then on Twitch, and then kind of getting more because more people want to talk, but more the merrier for me. I just gotta open up the schedule. Sure. So other than that, like main thing is, and if you guys want to join too, once you guys are caught up, join my Discord, because like that's Theory Central. If you're just excited by fun theories, we have people come up with some incredible theories, and right now I'm taking a break from it because I'm just so focused on my videos at the moment. But if theories excite you, if ideas excite you, if One Piece excites you, join the Discord. That's the main place to get in the loop of whatever I'm doing. So main channel Parvision on YouTube, and then you'll see the links in the description, and Discord's where to reach me the best. You know,
Fuck yeah.
So awesome, looking forward to talking with you guys more, and I can't thank you enough for bringing me on. I feel bad because I took up 2 hours and 30 minutes of your time.
I mean, we're probably gonna release this like as its own episode. Dude, this is so awesome.
I know.
This was so awesome. Don't feel bad. I mean, we love this series so much. I mean, we love talking about it. We love, like you said, just sharing this with so many other people that we wouldn't have otherwise been able to connect with and talk to. And that's what's beautiful. It sounds corny. It sounds, whatever, but that's just the truth. Like without this, this connection wouldn't have ever been made. And it's been a pleasure. Like it's been an absolute pleasure. So thank you again. Me and Mehgan are going to go through beat by beat later on. But that's going to do it for our conversation with Parvisions. So again, subscribe, like you said, to his channel, follow all those links to his Discord, all that good stuff. And Parvisions, do you want to help us with an outro for this? We usually do outros.
I helped you with it last time.
Yeah. No, you did. So yeah, anything we've talked about in the arc or anything, like, let's see, Megan's usually the one that cooks up fire around this time. We went off on some crazy theories. On some crazy theories. Damn, I suck at this part. So I usually
favorite line, if it's just the line from it, my favorite line is just the first one I said was, "There's no weapon deadlier than a mature woman."
I like that. Let's do that. So I want to say thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And then until next time, and then remind me of the line again so I don't forget. There's no
deadlier weapon than a mature woman.
Woman.
The other one's a little bit longer, but I think that one's a good one.
Okay. All right. As always, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And until next time, there's no deadlier weapon. Come on, Parvisions, you gotta do it with
Than a mature woman.
You have to do it with us. Yeah.
We got it. Thank you so much, man. And again, stay tuned, everybody else, for the beat by beat discussion. That it's probably gonna be a separate episode, but either way, more One Piece, more content. Yeah.
More
More fun. More good time.
More fun. Yeah, for sure.